Yes, unless you're speaking. Are we all ready to go? Okay. Right, I'm opening the meeting at 7 p.m. Welcome to all of those in the chamber here and all of the guests outside in the gallery, or the makeshift gallery. First of all, please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that this land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who gave their lives for this country and its people. And it's particularly poignant for us to remember that this week on Thursday is Remembrance Day, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, when we remember all of those who have lost their lives in conflict. We seek understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all those who reside, study, work in, and visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. In relation to emergency procedures, if they are required, please follow the instructions of staff. We are live streamed, so you can follow live this meeting from home, and an agenda is available on the website. Just a reminder about use of microphones. Please make sure you raise your hand when you wish to speak. I will record those in a lineup, and please turn off your microphones as soon as you finish speaking, and you can remove, of course, your mask whilst you are speaking, because otherwise sometimes people can't be heard very clearly. Please turn your mobile phones off or to silent, and I just remind all those in the public gallery outside to be reminded that please allow the debate to continue undisturbed, and I know that there is quite a lot of concern about the issues we're discussing tonight, so I just ask you to respect those who are speaking at the time. I'll move now to absences, and there is an apology from Councillor Hughes, who has let us know she'll be about half an hour late because of an outstanding work commitment. We have no leave of absence. I'm now asking if there is anyone who has a declaration of interest to be made. Failing no response. Oh, there is? Oh. Sorry, Councillor Hughes? It's on the screen in front of you. Oh, apologies. Councillor Hughes has... Yeah. Councillor Hughes has advised that she has a conflict of interest for item 11.6, Burnside Country Fire Service, the proposed new lease, report number 287-21. Thank you for that, I hadn't seen it. And a confirmation of the minutes. I seek a mover. Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Seconded, Councillor Turnbull. All those in favour? Against? Carried. There was no adjourned business, and there are no questions for public question time. Now, I am going to read out the way that we will deal. Well, there are no presentations either, but we do have a large number of deputations this evening. First of all, for tonight's meeting, we've received a total of 9 deputation requests on the topic of the Wheel Park. In accordance with Clause 11.12 of Council's Code of Practice, Procedures at Meetings, the Chief Executive Officer and I have selected 5 deputations to be heard tonight, having regard to relevance, viewpoint and timeliness of the requests. As these deputation requests are all on the same topic, in accordance with that code of practice, the deputations selected attempt to have a balance of opinions presented. We will hear from 5 deputations that have been approved. John Bennett and Bridget Murphy-O'Neill will be first, followed by Liz Siltz, followed by Gabrielle Hart, who unfortunately has lost her voice, and she is now being represented by Brian Hayes, QC. We'll then be hearing from Richelle Martin and Andrea Edwards. Currently, there are 4 other deputations not been approved. They are from Jenny Bates, Kate and Dion Venning, Susan Logan and John Golding. Regulation 11.6 of the Local Government Procedures at Meetings Regulations allows the Council to resolve to hear the deputations, which I have not approved, by way of resolution if it chooses to do so. I'm reading this out, so I know you've got hands up, but people outside need to know and understand what the process is. The deputees in question were advised that the Council can do this, and it is up to the Council to determine if they wish to hear these additional 4 deputations. So I need a mover or an indication from the floor as to whether you wish to hear the remaining 4 deputies. Councillor Davis, you had your hand up first.
I'll move that we hear all deputies for tonight.
Seconded by Councillor Turnbull, you had your hand up second. You seconding the motion? Thank you. Now get some guidance from the floor, please, if you support that. Thank you. So that lets people out in the foyer know that if you were told that you were not officially a deputy tonight, you are now permitted to speak, and you will speak in the order that I read out. After the first 5, it will be Jenny Bates, Kate and Dion Venning, Susan Logan and John Golding, assuming they are all here. No further deputations will be taken. I'd like to remind all those who are going to make a deputation tonight that you have 5 minutes to make your deputation. You will have a warning bell at 4 minutes, and a bell will sound at the end of your time. So please conclude your sentence once you hear that second bell. Council members may ask questions at the end of your deputation, so be prepared to answer them, but it is not a debate on the topic. At the start of your deputation, we will ask you to state your name and your suburb. You don't have to give your full address, just your name and suburb for inclusion in the minutes of this meeting. So I will now call upon John Bennett and Bridget Murphy-O'Neill to speak, and you may, of course, remove your masks while you are speaking.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is John Bennett, and I live in Erindale. I'm reading this on behalf of my daughter, who can't be here tonight, and she's written something out. I'll start now. My name is Eleanor Bennett. I am 25 years old. I live with my family in Cowan Street. I absolutely do not want the skate park to be built in Newland Park Reserve. When the pop-up skate park was built near the area, the noise it made was extremely loud, disruptive, frustrating and overwhelming. I have been diagnosed with a disability called autism spectrum disorder, which causes me to become highly distressed by various sensory stimuli, one of these being sound. I would become highly distressed by the constant and repetitive noise of a skate park. Being home allows me to relax and unwind, as often I get very distressed when I'm out. Not being able to have this extremely valuable and precious time in my own home would cause immense strain, anxiety and exhaustion. It would majorly affect my psychological and emotional well-being and quality of life. It would also limit my ability to function and do daily tasks and activities whilst at home. To ease my anxiety related to my disability, I love going to Newland Park Reserve with my mother for a walk. The peaceful noises of nature really calm me down. Obviously, the noise of the skate park would disrupt this, and I would not be able to do the essential activities anymore. I also study at university externally, which means that I'm always at home when I study. Having the noise of the skate park would majorly affect my ability to concentrate. When the pop-up skate park was built, even putting in earphones would not completely cancel out the noise and vibration. I was actually not able to study when the children were out playing in the skate park, which was highly disruptive to my routine. Erindale is an absolutely beautiful place to live in, as it is peaceful and has an excellent sense of community. And that's all I wish to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Bennett.
Thank you for your time. My name's Bridget Murphy O'Neill and I live in Erindale. The Newland Park Kindergarten, I'm speaking on behalf of the Newland Park Kindergarten Governing Council. The Newland Park Kindergarten is not in favour of the proposed wheel park situated in Newland Park. Newland Park Kindergarten has been spoken to over the phone only once about a cement bike track, and only parts of that comment have been quoted in the report put to Council tonight, not all of the conversation. Newland Park Kindergarten program would be seriously compromised by a wheel park in Newland Park. The increased noise would make it unpleasant, uncomfortable, and for some children impossible to use our outdoor learning space. Our program is based outside, using the outdoor play space, and to be forced inside by increased noise is intolerable. We use the nature in our outdoor play space as an integral element of our curriculum. Regular visits to the neighbourhood trees and the gums in our yard from our local koala Cole are closely observed and documented by the children. This works towards our preschool quality improvement goal, which is for all children to develop a strong respect for the native natural environment and their world. We believe the introduction of a wheel park would discourage wildlife and disturb the natural surrounds of our kindergarten and therefore compromise preschool learning permanently. At Newland Park Kindergarten, we teach children to be custodians of the land, alongside the Garner families in our community. A wheels park is not in keeping with this lesson for our children. We use the newly regenerated bush along the eastern fence of the kindergarten for bird watching. The children use binoculars and stand on our platform and watch the parent birds fly to and from their young. It would be unacceptable for this natural bush if this natural bush was replaced with public toilets and cement. Newland Park Kindergarten owned a variety of wheels for the children to use and develop gross motor skills. We find the most useful surface is the flat surface of the tennis courts. We find the most, we told a council rep that when they called that very few of the kindergarten children were able to use the plastic pump track when it was on the tennis courts in June, but they enjoyed riding the circumference of the pump track on the flat tennis courts. Parents safely use the car park near to the kindergarten gate on Lockwood Road. When using this car park, children do not need to cross any roads. Is that all I have time for?
Yes.
Thanks for your
very much.
time.
Now, Mr Bennett, if you could just come forward again, please, in case there's anyone who wishes to ask a question of you. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question of either Mr Bennett or Ms O'Neill? Councillor Turnbull, followed by Councillor Davis.
I was just interested about the children with the koalas. Is it correct that they keep a koala log?
We keep a koala log. We had 2 in today, and the one called Cole has been named after the teacher at our kindergarten because he's there so regularly. We've had the wildlife group in and tagged him, so we know which one it was, and he was in today. So yes, we do keep a log. It's very important to our program.
Thank you. And Councillor David?
Can I just ask, what are the operating hours of the kindergarten?
We're there from, the children are there from 8:30 till 3. We're there from 8 till 4.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Mr Bennett? All right, then thank you very much for coming in and giving your presentations to us.
Thank you for your time.
Now I call upon Liz Silts.
Thank you. My name is Liz Silts, a resident of Stonyfell. I've been asked by my friend Kelvin Watson to speak on his behalf in opposition to a proposed wheel park in Newland Park. Kelvin is a disabled gentleman who is unable to attend this meeting as at this time of the day a nurse attends his home in order to prepare him for sleep and help him into his bed. Kelvin has prepared a statement for me to read. This is it. We are very familiar with Newland Park as residents and users, as we have lived here for over 20 years, adjacent to the park and tennis courts. I'm confined to a wheelchair because I am paralysed from the chest down. To help me cope with this challenging and often daunting life as a paraplegic, I spend time outside the front of my house under the carport because I am unable to access my front or back garden. This space is only 20 to 40 metres away from Newland Park tennis courts and ovals. Outside, being in nature helps my mental health and well-being. I listen to all of the natural sounds of the bird life and contemplate nature overlooking the park. Often my elderly neighbours stop to chat with me as they pass by on their walks. The proposed wheel park would destroy my peaceful surroundings because the noise would penetrate my space, even inside my home. This would bring untold stress to my life. The Feasibility Study, point 28, states that this proposal would exceed the noise goals. During the recent trial of the pump track, we were disturbed by the constant bump of the track. Even inside our home, which is double brick, the noise was disturbing. The evaluation table, point 28, headed Safety, deems that emergency and maintenance vehicle access is ideal. Our experience is that this is not the case. I'm in a motorised wheelchair and am unable to transfer to a car. In order to leave my property to attend medical appointments, I require an access cab. On several occasions, the access cab has had difficulty accessing my driveway due to parked cars. These are often parked illegally and drivers are difficult to locate. Parking is a problem because of the high usage of the ovals and tennis courts. Another activity, such as a wheel park, would bring even more traffic to the area. The evaluation table headed Safety states this is of intermediate suitability. We do not agree. At times, Newland Road is a high traffic area as traffic travelling along Hallett Road diverts through Newland Road to Lockwood Road, often at high speed. The evaluation table shows high foot traffic in this area, but ignores one key safety issue. There are no footpaths along most of Newland Road, Undulkara Road and Debney Drive. This is dangerous for people negotiating parked cars, especially so for those pushing strollers, using wheelchairs or those on mobility scooters. Often they are unable to access the grassed areas off the road. The feasibility study says it was deemed that a wheel park would be compatible with the unstructured recreational uses of the reserve. We strongly disagree because at present the unstructured recreational use of Newland Park Reserve is mostly people walking their dogs, walkers, joggers exercising and people sitting contemplating the quiet natural scene. There is no noise. We believe that at present, Newland Park has a happy balance of uses, catering for diverse groups while still maintaining times of quiet tranquility. A permanent skate wheel park would destroy the balance with constant noise intrusion for residents and other users of the park. Often the needs of the disabled and elderly are ignored. As you can appreciate, Kelvin is concerned that the quality of his life will diminish should a wheel park be constructed opposite his home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silt. Does anyone have any questions to ask of this deputy? No? Well, then I will thank you very much for reading Kelvin's response too. Thank you very much. Next person to speak is Brian Hayes, standing in for Gabrielle Hart.
Thank you. Thank you, members of council. I represent Dr. Gabrielle Hart, and what I'd like to do is firstly take you straight to one of the attachments in relation to, by the proponent of this development, where it is stated that residents living close to a community space are entitled to have an opinion on what changes may occur, but their opinion has no more weight than any other resident living further away. if you purchase a house near a community space, you don't purchase the right to say what happens in that community space. Now, that is, with respect, patently wrong. To suggest that a resident who lives 15 kilometres away from a proposal in a reserve has the same weight, their views have the same weight as someone who is directly impacted by the proposal. The interesting thing here is, members of council, you resolved that you carry out a feasibility study, and the purpose of that study was to determine whether the location chosen by that study meets the criteria sufficient to justify the council in proceeding further with preparing a concept plan for the development. The concept plan is an expensive process. It's estimated to run to about $15,000, and the council should not embark upon that if the feasibility study does not justify it. In my respectful submission, you only have to read the feasibility study and see why this proposal cannot, on any view, be justified in the proposed location. Now, the administration's report contains a chart at pages 384, where it identifies the criteria, and you'll see that the report itself says most of the criteria has been satisfied by this proposal. Well, just look at which criteria have not been satisfied, because it's no good talking about size, regulated trees, fauna, biodiversity, etc. as being satisfied, parking, proximity to traffic, and so on. Of course those are satisfied, but what are the important criteria? It's livability and amenity. And when you see proximity to residents, that is not satisfied. And look at noise, that is not satisfied. It exceeds the noise limitations which it envisages. If you look at the other elements of this, they are not satisfied. But we only have to look at the conclusions of your feasibility study. Let's just read that to see how on earth can the council go ahead to the next stage with this conclusion. While a wheel park of approximately 650 to 850 metres would fit at Newland Park and service a large population of children in the area, so it fits, of course it fits, it's level land, it's a park, etc. The noise impacts on nearby residences would be a concern. Extensive acoustic barriers would also be required, which would significantly alter the aesthetic of the park and are not expected to be practical. Further, a wheel park at the site would change the current use of the area from predominantly service-structured club sports to a mix of residential activities. It's important to note that if the wheel park is developed and the park was still well utilized, but with a different type of activation that is currently at that location. And what is that referring to? It's referring to the loss of a tennis court. It's referring to a loss of some revegetated area. These are conclusions of your feasibility study. And if you proceed in the face of those conclusions, what the council will be saying is, notwithstanding the effect on the local immediately impacted residents of that suburb, we are going to go to the next stage and spend $15,000 to prepare concept plans, bearing in mind that you will then have to make a planning application to have it go through, and bearing in mind that when that planning application is heard, these residents will object to it again. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. On page 380, 6.2, in the risk assessment, it states, the community have expressed a desire for a wheel park in the city of Burnside. etc.
Councillor Henschke, you
Yes.
need to ask a specific question
Yes.
of the speaker
My
about
my
his
question
deputation.
is, yes, thank you. So my question is, in relation to that statement, the community have expressed a desire for a wheel park in the city of Burnside, would you regard a result from our community surveys across the whole city with 56% in one year or 55% in another
Sorry,
year?
Councillor
Would you
Henschke,
see
this is
that
not
as
relevant to asking of the question of the,
well-
because he's not party to that
Well,
information.
I
with
wanted to
respect,
know-
I am, and I'm
Yeah.
very happy to answer
Yeah,
that question.
I
I think it's a
yeah.
very pertinent question with respect.
I'd like to know what you think, if that's a
Your
strong...
report refers on page 381 to the surveys done, which
Yes.
purports to be a reference to the feasibility study recommendations. Well, just have a look, would you, at page 8 of the feasibility study itself, which refers to these surveys. The surveys, it says, results of previous community consultation were in respect of a wheel park at the J.B. Weir Reserve, the Kensington Gardens Reserve, the Mellor Reserve, and Penfold Park. They are not consultation in relation to anywhere near this reserve. It's wrong to assume that because the 58% of the respondents to that can be applied in any way to this particular reserve. It can't, because they haven't been consulted. It's as simple as that.
Thank you.
Councillor Davis?
With respect, in relation to the survey that Councillor Henschke mentioned, was it not a reference to the community survey, which is a statistically valid survey which was put to all residents of the City of Burnside Council, not to the surveys that you just mentioned?
With respect, no. If you look at the page 9 of the...
Clause 9, page 9.
Page
if you have a look
9.
at paragraph 19, I think that's what you'll find.
No, I'm looking at... This is of the feasibility study, page 9. It refers... This is the actual report I'm referring to. Page 9. I'll read it. A representative survey, is that the one? No. Well, which is it?
Sorry, but this is turning into debate, and that's not what we're here for.
No, I can only answer.
No, I'm not
question.
criticising you. I'm not criticising you. I'm sorry. It's a matter of, it's supposed to be a question and a direct answer, not a discussion back and forth, and that's the rules of our deputation time. As I said, I'm not criticising you. All right?
Well, the question's withdrawn, then I take it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So now, is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? If there are no further questions, thank you very much for coming along and representing Gabrielle Hart. Now I'll call upon Rochelle Martin.
All right. Good evening, Council and Council Administration. Long time no see. Thank you for letting me participate, along with the other speakers in this ongoing discussion regarding a wheel park for Burnside. The last couple of weeks has reaffirmed for me how important this next step is in approving and providing our community with a concept design. The conversations of not knowing what could be created, the petitions against, the concerns of residents, and the potential benefits for the local community. How can anyone make a decision when no one actually knows what they're talking about? Council resolved last time that this topic was discussed to approve a feasibility study for Newland. Council also resolved not to do a comparison feasibility study for Kensington Park. So here we are. The feasibility study, which has been completed and brought to Council, has not come back with any definite answers as to why a wheel park could not proceed at Newland. It has highlighted some elements that I believe can definitely be addressed in a concept design. Hence why I'm supporting a concept and why I'm asking you to do that as well. This should be worked through so that we can go to the community for feedback, and isn't that the whole idea? This discussion should only be about a visual representation of what could be created at Newland. The image, the concept, takes away the unknowns and provides everyone, residents and councillors, with the choice to support it further or not. This is the right way to engage the Burnside community to participate in a discussion, rather than this continued unrest for and against. The petition against the skate park for Newland that has been submitted, to me, is a little bit premature, as no one here could possibly know what could be created and how awesome a wheel park facility could actually be. Why don't the people on the list and the people talking tonight want to see an image? What is so scary about an image of a wheel park? The vote tonight is not whether to build it next month or not. I've seen the same thought process applied by members of our community towards the pump track before they knew who would use it and how it would be used. Through actual evidence, we know how popular it actually is, how engaging it is, and how much of a community hub it created, especially at Newland and in winter. I know there are signatures on the petition for families who use and love the pump track at Newland, and this is because they didn't understand what tonight's meeting is actually about. I am a sports lover. People who follow and support Skate the East are sports people, active people. No one wants the tennis club to be at a disadvantage, or the baseball club. But how do we know how they could be affected or benefit without a proper concept? I've been on this journey with you for nearly 3 years. And we all know that what research and what effort on everyone's behalf has taken place to get to this point. This is not a made-up request. The surveys have been done. There is support for a wheel park. Please support all the work that's been done to this point. Please vote for a concept design for a wheel park at Newland tonight so that an honest conversation can actually take place. I support location too, as I believe there is more room to investigate the opportunities, benefits and realities of what could be achieved here. Should the vote for the concept not be successful, I ask you to please keep this moving forward with a second motion to still investigate a feasibility study into another location. Bearing in mind that you will always come up against the fear of the unknown. How long do the kids have to miss out based on this? You have the chance to break this barrier tonight with a concept design. This is actually short and sweet for me tonight, as I'd like to use my time to play this quick video to remind us all who we are making decisions for. For the ones who don't get to speak at these meetings, who probably weren't asked to sign the most recent petitions, who probably weren't asked at the kindy either, but the ones who have shown us by using the pump track how important a facility like this is within our community.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good creeping up on you. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on. All those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling. So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, 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 come on. Ooh, it's something magical.
I don't think we missed very much of that. Okay, it's almost at the end. Thank you very much. Are there any questions that we to ask of Rochelle? No? All right, well, thank you very much for coming in.
No worries, thank you.
And now call upon our last of the originally approved deputies, Andrea Edwards, to come forward. Just if you could state your name and suburb, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Andrea Edwards, and I'm a resident of Erindale. And I'm here to speak, and thank you for letting me speak here, for the concept of a skate park. Now, my youngest child actually plays for the Burnside Tennis Club. However, all his games are always away. There's not enough courts to actually host any games there. And additionally also, my children use Newland Park for kicking a football, playing soccer, tennis, and catching up with friends on a daily basis. We, as the family, also take our dog Buddy every day a couple of times to Newland Park for his runs. So we're actually there so often that it feels to us like it's an extension of our own backyard. My family has a great love for the outdoors and love all the nature, and I really appreciate the Burnside City Council's efforts to keep everything so tidy and neat. During the pump track trials, we had many families bringing children to Newland. It felt like a community hub. It was a great experience, and we should give our kids a permanent skate park, something they can use in their own time, where grandparents can take grandkids and anyone, any age, can give it a go. There's even an unused space that could possibly that was meant to become a tennis court that would be suitable for a skate park. The setup could also be beneficial for the kindergarten children, as they've got so much energy to burn, and I see them racing around to the tennis courts already, and they really enjoy that. Children should be the focus on everything to do with the park concept, so we'd really love to see a concept for Newland. I don't see many other children play as much outdoors as my two boys do. To get them outside is not always easy. The more distractions there are for kids in our suburbs, the easier it is for parents to motivate them to go outside and play. A skate park would definitely help me and their friends. Newland's also a great location because parents can keep an eye on their children, as it is open and you can play tennis whilst the kids would use the skate park. The biggest worry to me is that with what all the screen time does to our children's mental health. I would like to ask all here at these chambers to consider creating a place in Burnside where children and families could gather, use their scooters and bikes. It's an Olympic sport, skating's an Olympic sport. Give them opportunity to get good at it. The Burnside Tennis Club is obviously a great club, but the children don't use that space very often. On the weekends, usually, it's occupied by adults, same group of adults, which is great that they use the tennis courts, but it just doesn't give the kids any opportunity to use the baseball hoops or practice tennis or just scoot around the courts. And even some of the baseball club members have actually spoken in support of a skate park, and that's perhaps because mum and dad are playing baseball or just, gives the kids something to do while they do that. I think it's a great idea. When the pump track was used in winter 2020, that community hub sprang to life right near our house. We live very close. And all the families gathered there. People brought their bikes. Their friendships formed, and people seen outdoors that normally would not come to play. And it was so wonderful to see people that they would never normally see in the streets play, to come to that pump track. Burnside's definitely lacking a space like a skate park. There is such a community feel when we had that temporary track that this could be just something we'd have forever. We residents have been waiting for a long time for a concept plan for the skate park. I worry that my children will be adults before anything happens. It'd be such a shame to see our kids miss out. There are great skate parks around our great state already, and every time we are away, we make good use of them. It's just hard to believe it's taken so long for the council here to come up with a concept somewhere. Looking after our youngest members of the community is a great way to set them up for life as bike riders, rollerbladers and skateboarders. And as I said, we are a very sporty nation. It's an Olympic sport. We adults should encourage more outdoor activities and put aside our adult worries like house prices or a little bit of noise. See it as an investment in our youth. And if you look at it through the eyes of a child, they would love to have a skate park, and there would already be a skate park, I reckon, in our council. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question of Ms Edwards, please? Councillor Turnbull?
Mayor. Thank you for coming in, but I would like to ask this question. Do you consider that this wheel park would cater for the same age children as the pump track did? I know it's very popular with the younger age group in Newland. Do you think a different age group will be predominant?
Yeah, possibly at times. That could be that certain age groups would take over. But I think children are quite good at co-using a space, in my in my experience using other skate parks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that would work.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Otherwise, I will thank you very much for coming along and speaking and talking through your deputation. Now I will call upon those that have now been approved. For the sake of Councillor Hughes has just arrived, we are hearing the remainder of the deputation. So next person is Ms Bates, Jenny Bates.
Sorry, glasses.
Again, if you just state your name and suburb.
And I'm in Erindale. I hope you heard that, thank you. I'm speaking tonight to oppose a permanent skate park being placed on Newland Reserve. A skate park will cause unacceptable levels of noise for local residents, including myself and my family. My property is less than 30 metres from either of the suggested locations in the feasibility study. Due to the high amount of noise from a skate park, I and my family will effectively be unable to spend any time outside in my rear garden, where I currently spend a lot of time to relax and unwind. The noise assessment report in the feasibility study says 62 decibels is the predicted maximum noise residents will experience. The proposed locations of a skate park on Newland Reserve are far too close to people's homes, and on this basis alone, I am so surprised and extremely disappointed that the council is continuing to even pursue the feasibility study. The increased noise and increased activity from a skate park on Newland Reserve will have major detrimental effects on my physical and mental health, and I am sure on the health of all the residents living in proximity to it. In addition, there is abundant native wildlife living in and visiting the pocket of native vegetation at the rear of the tennis courts, and more broadly using Newland Reserve, none of which is really seriously referred to in the feasibility report. A koala colony lives in the blue gums and travels through. This was mentioned by the kindergarten rep. Copious rainbow lorikeets nest in the area and roost and feed on the blossom. Adelaide rosellas nest in the trees, roost and feed on the blossom. A colony of mopoke owls inhabit Newland Reserve and also roost in that small pocket at the rear of the tennis courts and where the current revegetation site is. Black cockatoos visit the location frequently to roost and feed. Galahs, sulphur-crested cockatoos and corellas visit regularly. A colony of magpies live in this pocket and have done so for at least 20 years. Microbats inhabit the gums and flying foxes use the gums as a stopover and feeding spot en route at night. Several additional bird species also use the habitat for feeding, nesting and protection. It is a sanctuary for these animals and birds. The revegetation zone also provides a native Australian flora environment which has assisted these animals and birds with food and some protection. Koalas are also identified as a vulnerable species and they require protection. From my observations of other areas, increased noise and activity coming to this area at Newland Reserve, which a skate park would create, is likely to severely disrupt these animals and birds, and I believe will likely cause them to cease using this area to breed and roost, and there is a great risk the increased noise and activity will also cause them to abandon this area. It is extremely likely that there will be foot traffic through this area regardless of the current signs in the revegetation site which direct people not to enter, and this foot traffic will result in further damage and destruction of the revegetation zone. I'm also very concerned, I think understandably, about the security and risk at the rear of my property by having a lot more activity brought to Newland Reserve, where I have no buffer of protection and neither do any of my neighbours along Carn Street. Should there be any development of any other facilities such as toilets due to a skate park, this would act to surely destroy the habitat of the revegetation site and also require the removal of either regulated or significant South Australian blue gums, which are located at the rear of the tennis club room. I oppose the removal of trees and destruction of native habitat. To me, this type of planning and approach makes no sense whatsoever. I think the increased volume of people and traffic to Newland Reserve will create safety problems on the roads and footpaths, and resident securities will also be under threat. My street is already experiencing speeding traffic and is too narrow to accommodate more. A number of Cowan Street residents are already concerned about speeding traffic in the street and safety issues. A skate park will also undoubtedly be used at night, even if signage restricts that use, and all the local residents will bear the brunt of this noise and increased activity. I can say this with 99% certainty because this is exactly what happened when the portable track was placed on the tennis courts in March 2020. At that time, is that my finish? Thank you. At that time, unfortunately, the council did not take steps to stop people using skateboards at night and gathering in the area. And the South Australian Police, sadly, were disinterested in policing a council facility and also had bigger fish to fry at the time.
Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you very much. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question of Ms Bates? No? Sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you for coming along tonight. You mentioned security issues.
Yes.
And I just wondered what they were. You weren't able to continue to that, and I just wondered, were there any with the pump track, and do you have any other current security issues at the site?
During the time the pump track was there, and it did attract people to the area, I was very concerned about that because of COVID. Actually, at the time, there was insufficient supervision, and it was likely to become a spreading event at any moment. There was no social distancing. That's a form of health security. I complained to the council, and it wasn't until I complained that adequate signage was put up directing people to engage in social distancing practices. How that was approved as an activity at that time is beyond me. In terms of security at the rear of my property, in the evening there were frequently groups of older, I can't really call them children, and I dislike the expression youth, let's say older kids, gathering, having a good time, getting noisy, using the tennis courts actually rather than the pump track, creating a lot of noise, smashing things around, throwing bottles. This didn't happen every night, but it happened reasonably regularly in the evening. I contacted the council about that. They advised me I could contact the ranger, who was available after hours to attend to things like that. I don't know if the ranger ever attended, and in the end I gave up. I also contacted the police. Whether they ever attended, I have no idea. I believe a couple of other neighbours also made similar contact. It was sometimes scary to have that sort of noise and gathering going on at the park. Well, you know, I have to be honest, it was always scary. But it didn't happen every night, but it did happen. And that doesn't normally happen really at all because there's no reason for people to gather there in the first place. I'm really concerned about a permanent skate park bringing a lot of people to the area, not having a buffer between my rear fence, which is the case for all of the Cowan Street residents with the lower oval at Newland Reserve. We don't have a buffer there, and so we don't have any sort of protection. We're immediately on the reserve at our boundary. Yeah.
Councillor Piggott.
Thanks for coming in. I was just curious, does the noise of the tennis club cause you any problems?
No, the noise of the tennis club, if that was measured in decibels, would be much less than the predicted 62 decibels
I'm not so sure
that the feasibility report is suggesting.
But it doesn't give you any trouble. That's my question. The tennis doesn't give you any trouble, noise-wise.
No, no. And it's used a lot.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for coming in and presenting for us.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, next person or persons are Kate and Dion Venning.
I've actually asked Gary Stratford from the Eastern Districts Tennis Association to answer any questions at the end. Hello everyone, my name is Kate Venning, I'm from Leabrook. I'm the junior coordinator of the Burnside Tennis Club. We're a club built from volunteers because of keen kids who love tennis. We're a small club where all members know each other. I've been part of the club for 6 years, and in this time our focus has been about connecting with others and developing kids' interest in tennis. To do this, we communicate with the kindy, local residents and both schools, Burnside Primary and St Peter's Girls, who do use the courts at different times, even though the report states that they don't. I wanted to come tonight to express our concerns about the feasibility study for the skate park and the effects this has on the Burnside Beagles and the local community. The Burnside Tennis Club was founded in 1968 and currently has 40 members from the Burnside Council area, aged between 5 and 15, and probably a very similar demographic of who will be using the skate park, and some would. We also run a development squad of additional about 30 children coming in from younger year levels. The unique thing about our club is that we are only juniors, so our whole focus is on kids and tennis, growing them in confidence and building positive well-being. We currently have 2 players involved in the state development program run with Tennis SA. Kelly Byrne and James Brennan has kept us informed via meetings and emails about the study. What concerns us the most from these discussions is the possibility of losing a court. These courts are always busy, not just with the club, but of the community and groups outside. Having hits with the koalas and birds and the bees, and we had training tonight and we did have the koalas there too. Our own children and family would be affected as they do play sport both on the ovals and on the courts. If a court's replaced with a skate park, this would only leave us 3 courts. This means that club competitions could no longer be held. Competitions are held on Saturday mornings across the Eastern Districts. Currently, if there is only 3 courts, this would be outside of us being able to hold these competitions due to the Eastern Districts Association ratio court rule. Currently, we have 11 teams that compete in the Eastern Districts Association. While the temporary skate park was on the courts, damage was done and resurfacing had to be completed to these courts. Also, the club rooms were vandalised. It was mentioned in a meeting with the council that the club could move to a new location, but we said why. This again affects the families to take out one thing to bring in another. We don't want to move. This could mean the end of the club. Roger Rashid, who is a former Australian tennis player, tennis coach and tennis commentator, posted on his Facebook page last week. I was made aware today that the City of Burnside was looking at building a small skate park at Newland Reserve. Firstly, as you know, he has just built a skate park and believe there should be a new skate park in the Burnside area. They are a great connector piece to engage many people in productive ways. The problem with this one is they're removing a tennis court so they can place it there. That's not right in my books. Too many tennis courts are being removed. It's wrong. The other part of this is the skate park at Newland. It's just not a progressive option at all. There are many greater options in this council that would generate so many powerful connecting outcomes long term. Let's hope some more thinking can be done towards this idea. Money spent makes the biggest impact. We would be seriously jeopardised as a club if this decision was to have the skate park at Newland Reserve. We're a hard-working small club made up of all volunteers supporting junior sport through a game that our kids love, tennis in our Burnside community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have a question, please? Councillor Piggott?
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I understand the issue around losing the court. I absolutely agree with you. What do you feel, if it hadn't included compromising the number of courts you have, what do you think of your club would generally feel about a skate park in Newland Reserve?
Our club's mainly made up of kids who would probably use the both facilities, but I can't talk on behalf of the members. When it was there, I know some used it, and I know there's kids that are involved in the East Skate, so.
Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Jones.
Thank you for coming. You mentioned better locations that Roger Rashid had said. Can you give me where you think would be better to have a skate park?
On his Facebook page, apparently the temporary skate park was been at Penfolds, and there was lots of positive content on that. But other than that, I was just reading there. So that was Penfolds that was mentioned on there.
Anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Right, then I will thank you very much for coming along, both of you, and wish you all with the club. And the next person is Susan Logan.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Susan Logan and I'm the Vice President of the Kensington Baseball Club, located on Newland Road at Erindale. The Kensington Baseball Club is the only baseball club in the Burnside Council area and is steeped in tradition and culture. We have played an integral role in the life of the Eastern Suburbs community for more than 95 years. Established in 1926, the club moved to the Newlands Road site in 1947. The Cardinals, as we are known, have achieved a great deal of on-field success throughout our history and provide fantastic opportunities for youth and adults to play what is one of the largest and fastest growing sports in the world. We currently have 6 senior teams, including our women's team, 8 junior teams, and our season 21-22 T-ball program is about to commence. With players ranging in age from 8 to veterans, the Cardinals place a strong emphasis on our role in the community for the development and well-being of a large number of youth and adults. We also have the Kensington Gardens Junior Football Club, a fledgling football club which commenced in the thick of COVID and is slowly growing. In the coming season, we hope to build to 3 junior teams ranging from under 8s to under 10s. I'm here today with regard to the motion for a concept design for a wheel park at the Newland site. Our club is open to any community program that would increase community access to the Newland precinct. However, with the Newland Reserve being an integral part of our baseball playing facility for junior baseball, we are very mindful of reducing the grassed area, thus reducing our playing field. If more than 2 metres of the grassed area were taken, it would jeopardise our ability to play junior games. We often have multiple junior games or trainings running concurrently on the reserve. The junior football club would also be impacted if the grassed area was reduced. We believe the entire Newland precinct requires a master plan. To just create a concept design for one end of the area would be short-sighted and not take into consideration the impact of the rest of the area and what would be required to make everything work synergistically. It could also adversely affect our junior sporting clubs in the area as well as the broader community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Henschke.
Hello.
Hello.
How many children or youth are engaged with the baseball club, and would they all be mainly from the city of Burnside? Would you have a rough idea?
I have a rough idea.
Yep,
We have
thank you.
Just over 80 junior registered players currently, and that's without the T-ball program, which is about to start.
Yep.
As to the percentage of Burnside, I don't have an exact figure, but I suspect it's around the 70% mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
I'm interested when you spoke about football players. So is that an adjunct to your baseball club? Can you just... I'm interested in that because we have so few playing fields in Burnside. And
Yes.
the fact that your organisation, are they these new 3 teams or the 3 groups, are they affiliated with other clubs in Burnside?
No, we last year, the year before, recently, decided with the encouragement of council that we wanted to broaden our use of the precinct and make sure it was used year round. We have had relations with Glenunga Football Club. We also have St Peter's Girls playing on our top fields. But we chose to start with a group of very enthusiastic parents, the Kensington Baseball Club Junior Football Club, which is a bit of a mouthful. And so we have our own team starting, the under 8s and as I said, next season, hopefully under 9s and under 10s.
Thank you. That was great news for everybody to know about that, because it's certainly been a great development that Baseball Club has taken on board. Thank you for that. Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? All right, then I will move to our last presentation, which is from John Golding.
Hello, I'm John Golding. I'm a resident of Cowan Street, backing onto the park. The reason that I'm here tonight is to oppose going any further than the feasibility study that you have in hand. My reasoning is a great deal of emphasis has been given to the popularity of the temporary bump track. And when I started to research this, when I became aware of what was planned in our nearby park, which was only in recent months, I saw that competing locations for the bump track were mostly on smaller or soft surfaces. So to me, it's not surprising that Newland Park, as a relatively large and solid surface, would be popular. It's also not surprising that local community tolerance was present, given it was temporary. A permanent park is a very different thing. I have looked into other skate parks, as I'm sure others have too. We are aware of what a skate park is and what it looks like. I don't need a concept plan. The park, as it stands at the moment, is a quiet, compact park, already well used. It has its moments, certainly, with the existing baseball, football, tennis. There are times where there's a great deal of parking, great deal of noise, but they are brief. A skate park would be a much more permanent and constant source of noise and parking nuisance. So, as a resident, a nearby resident who was aware through Engage Burnside of the other sites that you were looking at, and only found out very late in the piece that we were being looked at so closely at Newland Park, I'm very disappointed that this matter would progress this far and need me to stand up and defend it. Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question of Mr. Golding? Councillor Turnbull.
I just wondered, when did you find out the feasibility study and how?
I found out from another resident that it was observed activity and investigated it around about June, July.
Any further questions? All right, well, thank you, Mr. Golding, for coming in and sharing your concerns. That is the end of the deputations. So we will now move to the next one, which is petitions. And we do have a petition that relates specifically to Newland Park Reserve. Councillor Dawes, you wish to move that report is received? Seconded by Councillor Davis. Any discussion? Then I will seek your support or not. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now I'm going to move through the reports and seek those who wish to withdraw. And then we'll discuss the order of events from then on. First of all, 11.1, the draft annual report. Does anyone wish to withdraw it? You do, Councillor Piggott. The report on financial results. Councillor Henschke. The annual community survey themes. Councillor Davey. Newland Park. Councillor Davis. Policy changes for revised Local Government Act. If there is no one you wishing to withdraw it, Councillor Davey. Burnside Country Fire Service, proposed new lease. Has anyone you wish to move it? Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Oh yeah, just wait a moment. Seconded by Councillor Lemon. Pardon? Well, I think you've missed your chance, Councillor Davey. I gave plenty of time and Councillor Piggott has already moved it. And it's been seconded, so those in favour? Against? Carried. Local Government Infrastructure Partnership Program deed. Councillor Cornish, you're moving it. Seconded by, sorry, it's okay, we haven't voted without you. And seconded by Councillor Hubel. I'll just wait for you to take your seat and then you can vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Mayor's Activity Report. Councillor Hughes has moved it. Councillor Henschke seconded. Those in favour? Carried. That's it. Now we go back to, now because we have a large number of people interested in item 11.4, I seek your leave or I seek a mover to suggest that we move to and deal with that one first. Councillor Piggott, you're moving that way. Councillor Davis is seconding. Those in favour, please raise your hands. All right, those against? Carried. All right, so we're now moving to 11.4 and it was Councillor Davis who had his hand up first.
Thank you. And I have an alternative motion to the officer's recommendation. All right, thank you. Can I read the...
I think you should for the sake of people at home and also maybe some of the gallery who can't read the screen.
Thank you. One, that council notes the report. 2, acknowledge the importance of both the Burnside Tennis Club and the Kensington Baseball/Football Club, and that council is committed to outcome that limits the impacts on each club. And in accordance with Resolution C 130-421/1280, we move a lot of motions. Proceed to the development of a wheel park facility concept design to be situated at Site 2, Newland Park. And 4, receive a further report presenting the concept design and the impact concept design on the continued use of the existing clubs and recommendations on community consultation for the proposal. So I'd like to move that way. Now, in speaking with this, I mean, this has been obviously a long process and we have gone through this. But I actually do think that Rochelle's video, if you cast your mind back, and many of you would have attended the pump track and it's what occurred there and the use of the kids within our community, I think those are the people that we should be, that's what we're doing this for, primarily. Now, the second thing is there are a lot of impacts. It's going to impact residents, it will probably impact the baseball club, and it'll impact the tennis club. And where we are at the moment with our feasibility study is it's not clear exactly what those impacts will be. We're halfway through this process. So what council determined to do was to conduct a feasibility study and to see a concept design and understand what that would look like. Not only for us, but also for residents, so that we can have an informed debate about what the impact of a wheel park would be at Newland Reserve. Now we're halfway through that process, and what I'm proposing here is further information to come back to a future council meeting so we can actually understand what that impact would be, and are there ways to mitigate the design through the design of the skate park and mitigate our impact on our residents. Now what we've heard a lot of, and I understand that from our residents, is fear. I get that. And the majority of the deputants were speaking about noise. And the noise report that was conducted through the feasibility process. But we also need to put in context what 50 decibels and 60 decibels actually is. So 50 decibels, in actual fact, well, 52.2 decibels is the hit of a soft tennis ball. A strong hit of a tennis ball is 58.4 decibels, and a hit of a baseball bat with a metal bat on a ball is about 80 to 90 decibels. When you think about 60 decibels, and that's potentially what the report considers over time, we're talking about a soft conversation. That would be the impact of the noise and general noise on the park. Now, to my mind, how could we mitigate that? What does that concept design look like? What is the target skill level of that skate park? What type of demographic would that skate park or that wheel park cater for? Would that concept design be for younger children with simpler jumps with a flat and open space? Or would it be Tony Hawk style 10-metre tall ramps? Those two different concept designs have very different impacts on our local residents and the impact of the amenity at Newland. I'm not saying that we should approve this tonight, and I don't think we can make a decision on whether a skate park or a wheel park is appropriate in Newland Reserve tonight because we don't have all the information that we first set out to achieve. At that point, we can make an informed decision whether we wish to proceed to community consultation. But I think having gone this far, we should take that small step to better understand what the impacts would be. One last statistic. I'll leave it for my summing up.
I need a seconder. Councillor Hughes, you wish to speak or withhold? All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? You might. Councillor Huber, you kind of getting ready or not? Oh, okay. Councillor Lemon.
I have a question of administration, if I may. The cost of the feasibility study, there has been some money spent. There was money put aside in budget, and we've budgeted for this. And there's been money spent already, I understand. Can you tell me how much is left to complete the feasibility study? What sort of funds are we looking at here?
Through Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through the Mayor, I understand that 15,000 was allocated within the budget. We spent approximately 7,500, 8,000, so 7,500 remaining. Subject to the procurement process will determine the exact cost. We estimated it to be approximately 15,000, so we may need a budget variation should we proceed.
So, if I may, Madam Mayor, the summary was that the estimated cost is $15,000. However, we only have $7,000 left in our current allocation, so we'd require an additional allocation of $7,000 from Council in our next budget review.
Is there anyone else who wishes to Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak against this proposal, and I would like to have an amended motion when I can. Thank you. But I'll speak against it saying, we've heard the deputations, we've heard the people.
Wait a minute.
I'd like to move an alternative motion.
An alternative, right?
Yes.
If this is lost. If this is lost,
yes,
then you wish to move an alternative
yes,
motion.
Just
needing to get the language correct, okay.
I'll just say that we've heard deputations, we've heard people who are so against it. Particularly of concern are the football club, the baseball club and the tennis club. Tennis club may not be impacted by this one, but the others will. The South Australian Football League have said they will not be able to run their football matches if there's any lessening of the area involved. So that would be a lot of loss for junior sport. And in Burnside, we haven't really got a lot of area for junior sport. So it would be very remiss to take off even more of that area. We've heard how it's been impacted on various people's lives. The person who lives 20 metres away, my goodness, no one else would like to live 20 metres away from that, I'm sure. Also, the people in Cowan Avenue, it was stated that it was 45 metres away from them, but that's into their bedroom, the estimated distance of their bedroom. If you have a backyard, you want to use it, and the noise levels are definitely over the top. So I would definitely not be voting for this one at all, because it's not fair on the people who live there. It's not fair on the junior children who play sport. It's not fair on the baseball club who've built up this sport. facility and now trying to increase it even more to keep our kids happy and healthy. It's just an unfair proposal, so I'll definitely be voting against that one.
I haven't seen any further hands. All right, Councillor Jones, followed by Councillor.
Look, I want a skate park for Burnside. I voted in favour of the pump track trial. I voted for this feasibility study. I also voted for the Kensington Park Reserve feasibility study, and I was disappointed that didn't get up. And we did the survey, well, some of us completed the survey on the key criteria for a skate park. And for me, the two most important things were proximity to neighbours and size. If we're going to have a skate park, we should have a decent sized skate park, befitting our city. So I think we've heard it all pretty clearly. It's too close to neighbours. There are better locations for a skate park in our city. And I'm underwhelmed too by the size of this facility. A tennis court is 24 metres by 11 metres. It's 264 square metres. It's too small. It's not worth having a pokey little skate park that's going to either stuff up the tennis club or stuff up the baseball and football club. If we're going to have a skate park, let's have a proper skate park. Let's have a 1,000 square metre skate park that's actually a decent facility befitting our city. So I do want a skate park, but I'm not convinced that this is the right place based on the feasibility study, and therefore I think it's a waste of money spending $15,000 on a concept plan. Let's agree on a better location and have a great facility for our city, but sadly, Newland Park is not it.
Councillor Lemon.
My views aren't dissimilar. I'm very disturbed that there are three sporting clubs that are likely to be disadvantaged. And I say that because I argued where the Glenunga Tennis Club had 3 courts, and I remember fighting for the first term of office to get an extra 2 courts. And what that did was that actually took them up into the district league in ways we couldn't possibly imagine. I think it's really unfair to take this tennis club that's been around for quite some time with young people spending a lot of time there, to take them down to 3 courts.
Please don't interrupt.
If there's any chance that they lose a court, I would find it very disturbing. Similarly, I think it's fantastic that the baseball club has branched out into another code and has a couple of football teams going. And again, if they lose 2 metres or more of their playing space, that's actually going to put that at risk. These are existing organisations, and as we all know in this chamber, this city is very short on playing space. The other thing that disturbs me is the revegetation project, which appears to actually just be taking off in terms of wildlife habitat. It would be an absolute disaster to have that in any way diminished because there's going to be a skate park, and we're going to be voting for a concept design, not a skate park. Obviously, it's going to come back to us. And so my final point is this: do we really want to spend that much money on a concept design that's probably, and I would say quite likely, to come back to us with community saying, actually, this isn't big enough, it's in the wrong spot, let's go somewhere else. I'd rather save that $15,000 and use it to investigate other larger and better places. I don't think this is the place for it at all. And finally, when we look at noise, I actually think it's not right to say that this decibel is the sound of a tennis ball being hit. It's not the sound of a tennis ball being hit. What we've got is the continual noise. I've got a skateboarder that goes down my street from time to time on the street, and that isn't a tennis ball being hit. That is, I can hear him coming, or her, likely to be him, I can hear him coming from the end of the street, and I hear the noise of the wheels on the road much, much further. It's not just a ball being hit and a ball being hit and a ball being hit. It's constant noise. I think we need to be realistic about what neighbours are going to be getting out of this.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I just want to congratulate, first of all, the deputies. There was a lot of respect from them all. They've got differing views, but obviously noise is a very, very big factor here, and I'm glad that Councillor Lemon just pointed out it's a continuous, constant noise. It's not just a hitting of the tennis ball. So SONUS, who did this particular noise report, you must remember they did the same noise report for the Peregrine helicopter pad, and we're all very pleased to read that, and I think they've won that. So what's the difference here? They are saying that it could be double the noise of a wheel park at Cumberland Park. Now, whether you agree with them or not, they are our independent experts. But what we did get from the deputies is some very good comments. I loved the one from Sue Logan, where Sue said, we need an overall management plan for Newland Park. I thought that was a big tick, because here we are, we're trying to plunk something in there which probably doesn't fit. It's going to affect either club or other clubs, and there's no footpath. There's lots of issues here. We can talk about, I'm sure Councillor Davey mentioned it, we've got wildlife there. There's so many things that are happening. Perhaps that's a better way of moving forward with Newland Park. But I did listen to Rochelle, and Rochelle said if we can't agree, she still wants us to investigate another location. I think Councillor Jones also said that. My last point I want to make is what I don't want to see at a future council meeting is deputations when we have the community consultation. Say this goes through, deputations from children in support of the tennis club or the baseball club versus deputations from children in support of a wheel park with the adults looking on. That is not a good look for the city of Burnside. So we've got over 130 people who have signed a petition, and yet before, when we discussed this about other venues, we had 30 odd. So you can imagine Councillor Turnbull and I thinking, well, hold a moment, there's too much negativity here, and perhaps the better solution is to do an overall management plan for Newland Park. So thanks, Sue, for that suggestion.
Councillor Henschke.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I won't support this motion. I sat on my front veranda today. I was reading the papers again. I imagined being like the people in this room waiting in the foyer there for their decision. I imagined what it'd be like to hear skateboards scooting around, or wheel parks, wheels scooting around. And I thought, okay, that'd be nice for a day or so. But if I'm a person who's living in my home day after day, enjoying my front veranda, I don't think that's an impact on my amenity. I am a resident. People out there are residents. They've bought into Burnside for a reason, for peace and tranquility. There is a park there. The park is there to be used as a park. Adding hard surfaces and concrete structures is not sympathetic to a park. Perhaps we need a master plan for skateboards, skate parks, wheel parks. That's all I want to say, but I really feel sad that we have so many residents having to come out tonight away from their families to deal with this. And as I said, I won't be voting for this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Hughes, you might have to. Councillor Hubel, you wish to speak. And, sorry, Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. And Nina Marnie, everyone, I greet you this evening. Again, my thanks to the deputies for coming out. Appreciate your perspectives. I'm looking at this in a bit of a different way. My thinking hasn't really come up tonight, and I'm really looking a little bit more blue sky, big picture here. I think it's clear that we have statistically valid data telling us as a chamber that residents of the city of Burnside want a wheel facility. But every time we look at a particular spot, we're overwhelmed with no. which tells me it's very much a yes, like it, but not near me type argument. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. I was going to talk a little bit about the noise. I was looking at the sound report myself, and I was interested to note that the current average noise levels at Newland, as they are now, are actually above the noise goal. And the noise goal being 47, the average noise being 49, so it's just a couple over. The maximum noise picked up and under current usage was 59, which does make me think that the prediction of 62 is not that much different, especially given there was a statement by somebody that the current levels are okay. Now I appreciate it's a different type of noise and there's a lot of other issues as well, but I think there's a bit of confusion about what it actually means. And I know from speaking to residents that have contacted me throughout this journey that we've all been going on, and it's no secret I'm a supporter of a skate park within the city, that I've had a lot of interactions with people where there's been misclarification about what we're actually talking about. There is, I think, a need to go to concept design to firmly speak to the community about what we are actually talking about. So I think we should go to concept design here, as we've previously resolved. This chamber has already agreed to a concept design in Newland Park, so I think we need to go ahead with that. But I also think we need to have a feasibility and concept design in Kensington Park, and I think we need to have one in Kensington Gardens. Unfortunately, the chamber resolved to take that option off the table. Initially, the administration gave to us Will Park locations. This was quite a few years ago now, 3 years ago, it seems like a long time. Kensington Gardens was all green in terms of looking at the criteria. Kensington Park was all green. Bell Yet looked pretty good. JB Ware looked pretty good. I think we need to find out what this means, what it looks like, and see through it, and take seriously establishing a skate park, and that means getting a concept design.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. The history of a skate park in Burnside is long, it is sad, and it is just outright depressing. And I've been involved in it from the very start. I was one of the very first to mention a skate park back in 1999, and here we are over 20 years later, and we are almost seemingly no further than where we were back then. And as Councillor Hubel mentioned, it is a case of not in my backyard, which is why I mentioned that it's just depressing every time. It is proven beyond any reasonable doubt, any survey, any consultation, any report we do, that there is a need for a skate park, Will Park. Time after time after time, the children tell us they want one. And the pump track was further evidence that the children want one. It is popular, it is demanded. If nobody wanted these things, the pump track would be dead. But it's still going, and it's still popular, and it's still growing. Having said that, as passionate as I am about a Will Park, I'm certainly not one of those people that's prepared to rob Peter to pay Paul, which puts me in a very, very difficult position. And this is something that I have lost a lot of sleep over the last few nights, to be honest. It hasn't happened much over the last 3 years, probably only about 2 or 3 times, and this is one of them. As passionate as I am about a Will Park, I'm equally passionate about baseball. I'm equally passionate about football. I'm equally passionate about tennis. And I cannot sell myself out to appease one group at the expense of another. This location, as much as I love the idea of a Will Park, this location, I think we all have to agree, is a pretty lousy location. It was great to begin with as a pump track trial, and it was popular. But it's just too goddamn small. And no matter what we do, no matter what report goes forward, we're going to keep coming up with this too small argument. And I think we all need to have a hard look at ourselves and realise that the best location was the first one we all talked about in this chamber. Kensington Gardens Reserve always was and always is the best location. But at the time, we had this view that, oh, maybe there's something better out there, let's just sort of keep looking and so forth. And that has all been an absolute waste of time over the last 2.5 years. We need to reconsider Kensington Gardens Reserve because that was the best spot for a wheel park.
Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Look, I haven't been this as long as Councillor Carbone by some margin, for which I'm thankful, actually. And in actual fact, I mean, what concerns me about this debate is that, yes, the city wants a wheel park. I've come to that view. I've actually spoken against it a number of times, and I'm over that. We need to now get the best solution, as I'd see it. And I probably doubt that Newland Park is the best solution. However, I do think we should support this motion. And the reason I think that is just in the last week and looking at this motion and asking questions and stuff, you find there is so much, well, fear could be one of it, but also misinformation, I think, out there. We've had this motion's been spoken against in terms of losing a court and screwing over, ruining the Burnside Tennis Club. It's not true. It actually took the tennis court off the mix. We actually had a member of the tennis club here tonight that was actually not totally against it as a concept, in her own view, not talking for the club. So that is misinformation in terms of looking at this motion as to whether we should vote it. It would still maintain the number of courts. I asked a question about how big the oval would be left. I've actually, it's a while back, I used my son, McGill Primary, played against Burnside Primary, got absolutely hammered pretty much every time on that lower oval on Newland Park. The answer came back, Barry gave me some information in terms of comparable ovals. The oval left over after you put the wheel park in here is actually quite comparable to all three of the Kensington Gardens ovals. Now, I question whether you couldn't run a serious amount of junior sport, whether it be baseball, football, on any one of those three ovals. I don't feel it would compromise that, and I feel that what it would give us would give us a concept design actually that would answer a few of those questions. The other one it would answer is it too small as a wheel park? I don't know, and I think most of us around here don't know. It's not a contest. Councillor Jones says it's too small. How do we know until we actually see what we could put there, what equipment, who does it cover? All those sorts of questions could be answered to give us actually a framework. Then we have the debate again. It's not sad that neighbours come to a council meeting, residents. It's actually positive. I think it's good they've taken that trouble. I do feel they might need to do it again if we do a concept design, and that's fine. But what it would do if we then decided Newland Park's not the one, for any one of those reasons, it at least gives us something that gives us a bit more information for the next one we look at, because we're going to have to keep looking at it until we solve it based on this chamber. I just think it does get us more information than going back. And let's face it, you pick the next one, Kensington Gardens Reserve, great option. We'll have the same amount of deputations, trust me. It's pretty true wherever we go. This at least would give us a bit more information. So I feel it is worth doing it, and it doesn't guarantee us ever doing anything at Newland Park.
Councillor Hughes, I think it might be your turn.
It's time. I was holding out just to hear how it would all play out this evening. I apologise for being late, but I did have a work commitment this evening. So to those whose deputations I missed, I do apologise. I guess I had a similar view to Councillor Piggott, and what this resolution does is it doesn't say we're going to build a skate park there. It gives us more information, because I have been to that oval. My kids have played sport at that oval, and what this would do is say, well, if you did this, you could fit in X, Y and Z, and you would lose this of the oval, or you would lose that. And that's, in my mind, what's missing, and I think still needs to be looked at. It does potentially just kick the can down the road, and we'll be back here again once we get that report. But I do feel the way that these things work in the community is, as Councillor Hibble said, we resolved to go away and get some more information, do a concept plan, so we could consult the whole community. And while I appreciate the neighbours and I appreciate the difficult position that they're in, it's kind of my position that I had on the Kensington Gardens Reserve is this is actually land that belongs to the whole of the city of Burnside. So it's actually appropriate for us to go and ask a whole community and consult with everyone. And similar to what Councillor Piggott said, if we put another oval in the highlight, we're going to get the same people. We're going to get a crowd of people, and we're going to have to make a tough decision eventually that either we upset someone or we just park this all together. So I think we have to look at a few views. And Councillor Carbone mentioned he won't play one off against the other. Currently, people that are looking for a wheel park facility have no amenity at all within the city of Burnside. And what we've seen is we've seen people down at Tusmore making their own wheel park. We've seen them in Hubby Court making their own wheel park. If you don't give them the facility or a facility at all, that's what happens. We will end up with destructive behaviours in other areas. So I think to create a positive facility, and we don't know what that facility will look like, and that's why I'm going to support this motion, because what I want to see is what elements can we put in there. And it's similar to what Councillor Davis said. Is it a big bowl? Is it something as simple as, look, and I'm not a skater, a metal pole that they can do flips off and not wear helmets and injure themselves? As a parent, it terrifies me. But I want to see what that looks like. And it may be that it doesn't end up here, but it will give us some ideas about what we can go to the community and consult on, and whether we have to go through this park and then the next park and then the next location. I'm keen to put this out to the wider community. As a parent, I can tell you that the way that these things work is you get a group of people, and I appreciate the position that Councillor Turnbull and Dawes are in, you get a local group of people who don't want this to happen because it will potentially impact it will change the way that they perceive things living. But what we don't get is a lot of people who would actually like to see this facility, because we haven't asked everyone. So that's why I'll support this, to get the information so we can actually make an informed decision with the next steps.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Henschke, you've already spoken.
Question, please. Thank you, Mayor. I have a question to the administration through the Mayor. Can the administration provide elected members with strategic alternatives for different types of wheel parks? So we have an idea of a $500,000 wheel park, the size of a tennis court. We have an idea of what a very simple wheel park that Councillor Hughes just described looks like and costs, right through to the multi-million-dollar Olympic Games variety of wheel park. Can we get that information, an information document, please, that we are informed without having to go forward with this project to test out what these things look like? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the short answer is yes, we could do that exercise, but what you find in reality is that every location you look to put a skate park, it actually is specifically designed for that location, having regard for the specifics of the location it's in. So I think it would be misleading to actually provide the council or community with the cookie cutters of what a small, medium and large skate park would look like. And it is a bit like asking how long is a piece of string, and I would hate to think what that would cost us to get prepared. So at this stage, I would advise against that approach from council. With the motion that's before you, that actually gives us parameters, and we will design something that we feel fits within that location. Thank you.
Councillor Carbone, you have a question?
I do, Your Worship. A question to the CEO, if I may. I know you're against providing a taste of what it could look like. I mean, you mentioned the word cookie cutter sort of approach. But could you at least argue that there is some merit in providing some idea, okay, versus no idea at all.
Through me, I think it's a leading question. I think most people can go onto Google and find a skate park or an example of a skate park. But I need to reiterate that a skate park that we may design for the city of Burnside may be very different to a skate park that's installed in another municipality. So I'd still think it's an unfair question for me to come up with examples when we aren't putting them in a specific location. For example, not understanding whether there is native vegetation that we need to work with in the design of a skate park. That's just one consideration I needed to have regard for when I'm designing a skate park.
Councillor Hughes, did you have your hand up for a question?
I did. It's a bit of a question, but perhaps I might get called up for being a bit of a statement. I was waiting for someone else to second the motion, but didn't, so I jumped in because I wanted to put an amendment and speak to Councillor Davis. But
come on with
would it be
question.
possible to, as following this, if this is successful, for us to do a bit of a Will Park tour? And I'm very keen as an elected body for us to actually go and visit some of the surrounding facilities down at Cumberland Park. I know that we have a very jam-packed workshop thing, but whether that would be something that staff could perhaps provide us with that opportunity. I love a good bus ride.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be supporting the motion as it currently stands, and for the current reasons, I actually would like to see the concept. I agree with the comments that the CEO has just made in relation to Burnside can do it differently, and Burnside can, and you have to build a wheel facility for the location that it's going to sit. When we decided to go out for consultation for this feasibility, we didn't go out to consultation for this feasibility study. Consultation's the next stage. When we decided to actually select this park for the feasibility study in the first instance, we had a number of deputations in the council gallery that night, and it was quite clearly sold to me that Newland provided something different from a lot of the other skate parks. It really flipped my view of a skate park for it to be a family-friendly facility rather than a teenage facility, and putting it on in a neighbourhood, a suburban neighbourhood, provides that passive security, provides that overlooking, that neighbourhood sort of interaction with the facility, compared to the other skate parks that are hidden on a main road where teenagers can be teenagers, and they're usually a lot bigger. I would actually like to see what a smaller skate park for probably a younger audience than the normal skate park would be, and one that is a family-friendly orientated skate park, and how that would actually look and feel within the city of Burnside. And to me, they were some of the massive comments that I got from that whole debate of, after we did the pump track trial, and Newland became one of the lead locations from that, during the proximity to the actual kids, the younger kids that are actually going to use it, and the conversations from the parents sitting there most of the day watching their kids, but they were on their computers or reading a book and those sort of things. It became quite a family atmosphere, and I do want to see what a concept for that sort of skate park might actually look. I think that might be something that the city of Burnside could actually see sitting in one of our parks. So I do support the motion as it stands.
Councillor Turnbull, you had a question?
I have a question for the administration. Could administration please provide some statistics of the other sites which have been trialled so far? We really haven't had much information about them. As regards to statistics on clientele, how many loops and all that sort of stuff for the pump track.
Through Madam Mayor, I'll ask Mr Camp, but I have a feeling we'll have to take that on notice. I don't have those statistics readily available, but Mr Count may. Through your worship, I was requested this information by another elected member just 2 days ago, so I do have that information. When it was what I do is I have the number of laps. It doesn't talk to the length of the track, and it doesn't talk to the period of time that it was in each location. So I say that up front. The Civic Centre was 62,313 laps. Newland Park was 275,751. Miller Reserve, 80,084. Kensington Park Reserve, 132,708. Langman Reserve, 33,519. And Penfold Park, 55,982. It's only recently been set up in Simons & Simons, so we don't yet have stats for that.
Is it possible to have that in a hard
Councillor Henschke? Sorry, you can't participate in this.
We can't hear what's being said.
Oh.
We have very loud classical music.
Okay. Have we got any way of turning the volume up out in the foyer, please?
Is it possible to rectify that in some way?
I'm just seeing into that, Ms Bates. It's actually at its maximum. Right. Sorry about that. We can't. Unfortunately, we can't. Yes. But then they're also being positioned by Mr Cooper to be compliant with the COVID regulations. So unfortunately, we can't ask them to move forward, Councillor Lemon. They could watch it on YouTube on their phones. That is a possibility if you've got your phones with you. Okay. Is that right, Mr Cooper? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. We have this problem, not a problem. It's lovely to have the Burnside Symphony Orchestra rehearsing upstairs, but it also can be sometimes problematic. Until we can get this parlour back to normal and we can have our gallery within this area, then we are working with those restrictions. Now, I believe I have a question from Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Question through the Mayor to the administration. How can we go forward with a project from the options stage that we're in, I guess, through to our concept design stage, when our feasibility report says we are not following the criteria of 50 metres setback from houses, because we have houses that are only 20 metres from their boundaries? How can our project management framework allow a project to proceed on that basis of a technical, when something's not technically feasible?
Through Madam Mayor, because if Council asks me to pursue a concept design for the location, that's what I'll deliver.
Right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask a question? I'll just make a couple of comments, and that is in relation to going and having a look at places. As was mentioned earlier, Roger Rashid has just been involved in the development of a new wheel park at Christie Downs, which was opened last week. There is, if you want to see a small one that is used by the whole community, and that is all ages, teenagers, little ones, then go down to Strathalbyn and have a look at that's a really good little park that is really well used by everyone. And the other thing that just for your information, is that Campbelltown have just had a wonderful grant from the government to rebuild and reconstruct their wheel park on the current place at Paradise. So there are a lot of changes happening, and as you are all aware, we are one of only 3 councils that we do not have one. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Right. Is there anyone else who wishes? Then I shall go back to Councillor Davis to summarise.
There's no doubt in any of our minds that a wheel park or the pump track has been hugely successful, I think, in the City of Burnside Council. And the most successful location for that feasibility or that trial that we did with the pump track was Newland. By far more than anything else, it had the most number of laps and the most active community participation at that spot. Our community, in a statistically valid survey, told us that 23% opposed a wheel park in the City of Burnside Council. 55% supported one and the rest were neutral. So we're looking at about a quarter of our residents who oppose this overall in the city. Now I understand when you get to these types of things, emotion and fear of the unknown is going to lead to deputations which are not fully informed about the facts. And I'm not fully informed about the facts. You aren't either, because you don't know what the concept design would actually look like. And Councillor Cornish, I think, made the best point. He talked about, well, is it going to be an Olympic quality wheel park in the City of Burnside? Is that what we're looking at, an Olympic quality park there? Or are we looking at something similar to a pump track which is permanent and which has more facilities available to it, which is more complex than perhaps, say, a pump track, but also incorporates that? Is that what we're looking at? Now, the impact on the tennis club, a couple of you raised concerns of that. The option proposed is option 2, which won't see a tennis court removed. In terms of the baseball club and the impact on them and their football, it's not my view that they should be impacted. I don't want to see them impacted by this motion. But we don't actually know what would happen at that site if a wheel park was proposed. We don't know what the impact would be on their ability to play sport. Yes, it would impact them, but would it stop them? Would it be prohibitive? And we haven't had that discussion with the club, and we haven't had the opportunity to look at that consequence. Now, I understand Councillor Carbone is suggesting we push it somewhere else. Have this debate again, go through this process again. And again, we'll do the exact same thing. What I'd be suggesting that we do is at least start as a council, not just for us, but for future councils, because I don't think that this will get up in our term, but at least start to collect that data so that our community can be aware of what a wheel park within the City of Burnside Council on a location like Newland Reserve would look like at least. At least let us get to finish the journey which we first started out with our original motion to do a feasibility and a concept design. At that point, we can have an informed debate. At that point, I think residents will be aware of it. What are the mitigating factors in terms of noise or amenity? What will that look like? What is the level of skill which caters to it? At the moment, we don't have that information. So I hope that you support this motion and at least take the next step that we determined earlier to determine what a skate park would look like in this location.
All right, I put the motion to you. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Division? Now, I believe there is an alternative motion that has been indicated to me that wishes to be presented.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move an alternative motion that Council 1 notes the results of the Newland Park Feasibility Study. Number 2, does not pursue the development of a wheel park within Newland Park. Number 3, defers any consideration of a wheel park within the City of Burnside until all sites from the nominated pump tracks have been trialled. The reason for this alternative motion is that the feasibility study undertaken by Burnside Council at the request of the majority of councillors has shown that Newland Park is not a suitable site for a wheel park. As was emphasised in the study, there are 4 major limitations. 1, proximity of any proposed wheel park to residents. Number 2, noise nuisance concerns. Number 3, compatibility with current occupancy and use. Number 4, the site's capacity to hold a wheel park. Number one, the proximity of the wheel park. This is an extremely important issue, as you can see from the concerned residents here tonight and as you've heard from the deputations. With reference to the planning guidelines given in the feasibility report, it says a wheel park should not be located directly adjacent to homes. It should be at least 50 metres from houses. This proposal places the potential facility as close as 20 metres and 23 metres from houses and 40 to 45 metres from those in Cowan Street and much less from their back fences. Number two is the noise nuisance concern. The modelling shows current noise levels at Newland Park to be 40 to 50 decibels. The noise goal is 47 decibels for Newland Park. The predicted noise level for the wheel park is 62 decibels. So while an increase from 47 to 62 decibels may not seem to be all that great, please note that the decibel scale is not a linear scale, but a logarithmic one. So the modelled increase in noise will be from 47 to 62 is much more than 10 times louder. And to achieve the noise goal, the proposed wheel park will require the construction of acoustic barriers. Expensive, may not be practical, and would greatly detract from the amenity of the open space. Do we really want to see large sound deflecting barriers constructed in our small open space parkland? Number three, compatibility with the current occupancy and use. Both the assessed sites are incompatible with the existing community uses of Newland Park. Proposal one, site one is incompatible with the tennis club, number two with the baseball club and the football club. Be very remiss, because sporting facilities are under great pressure in the city of Burnside, especially for juniors, be very remiss of council to even further limit our options here. The residents who live in this area do not want a wheel park. A petition of 134 signatures, deputations, an avalanche of consternation via emails and telephone calls, all protesting with complete justification. Many times elected members in this council chambers have implored fellow councillors to listen to the people. Well, the people have certainly spoken tonight and have come here in numbers as a united group. When the temporary pump track installation on the tennis courts was very successful, that response to the trial is now being used to support the case for a permanent wheel park. However, there were different circumstances at the time, and there are two different facilities catering for different age groups. In summary, not about wanting a wheel park in the city of Burnside, it's about making a wise decision on its preferred location. We as a council directed that the feasibility study should be carried out.
Councillor, your second bell has gone.
We should heed the advice, Newland Park is unsuitable for a wheel park. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Dawes, you're seconding? All right, okay. Does anyone else wish to speak now then? Councillor Davis?
I think straight out there's a number of factual flaws with all of the statements that the mover has just made, particularly in relation to what the feasibility study actually determined, and particularly in relation to how the decibels of a skate park. Look, the fact is, what we're voting for here is to not consider this again during our term of office. That means we punt that down the road, and we remove the obligation on us to make a decision in relation to this. That might be very convenient for some, and I understand that. It might be politically savvy for others in certain areas, and I understand that. But I think when Councillor Turnbull, and I'd like to highlight the point, is you should listen to the people. And those people spoke in a statistically valid survey, and those results were presented to us. So I think if you're going to actually practice what you preach, we should look at what the people of the city of Burnside have actually said to us. Now, this will happen anywhere it is, and wherever it goes in the city of Burnside Council, you have the exact same problem and you have the exact same fear. And perhaps that's what people want, because then you'll never actually get to find a conclusion. You'll never actually be able to have an informed discussion with people. There'll always be this push forward. And again, as Councillor Carbone said, it'll take another 15 years. I'm disappointed that we couldn't make a decision to actually take a step forward tonight, and this motion will do just that. Give it another 15 years, this will go to the next council, and it will push it forward to potentially the council after that. And I think that's very much a lost opportunity for this council to show leadership and actually advocate on behalf of our residents. I don't support the motion, and I'm incredibly disappointed that we're at this point.
Councillor Carbone,
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move an amendment if I can. I'd like to move items 1 and 2 and the removal of 3, if possible.
no, I'm getting the shake of the head from over the governance people, saying that's a completely different motion. It's not an amendment, by deleting number 3.
If that's the case, can I speak?
You can speak, yes.
I'd like to speak against this motion. I think for the vast majority of us here tonight, I think we can all say that yes, it is disappointing that we couldn't get anything tonight, and I'm to blame for that. But it's not over. And I think we can all say that hand on heart, it is definitely not over. It will happen, and it will happen inside this council term. I will not accept this to be delayed until after the election. And by moving ahead with this, I see delay tactics, I see red tape, I see unnecessary delays and so forth. So I think we should continue to move. We should continue to move on with this. This is a cruel blow. It's one thing to vote no, but it's another thing to vote no forever, pretty much. So we should vote this down, and if need be, vote items 1 and 2, because that's what we've determined tonight. But next week, tomorrow, is a whole new day, and we will continue to fight for the best spots in the best part of Adelaide and the best country in the world. So let's vote it down and let's continue to move forward with this.
Just before I move on with Councillor Piggott, can I just ask for a clarification on the time at which the nominated pump track sites have all been trialled?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. An important piece of information. The location of the pump track at the moment is at Simons and Simons, and that trial will be finished in January.
And that's the last one, I believe.
And that is the last pump track trial.
I just apologise for interrupting, because I think it's really important that we actually know, all of us, when that trial finishes. So now I'll defer to Councillor Piggott, and I've got you on the list, Councillor Lemon.
And in fact, that was one of my questions, actually, was to clarify that. So, yeah. But having clarified that, so can I just clarify the number 2? Does this mean Newland Park's off the books forever, or for the term of this council, or could it be considered after we finish at Simons and Simons?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll just take some advice from Mr. Cooper on that one.
Through the Mayor, the outcome of this motion, if passed, will be that the Newland Park location is taken off the table unless it's rescinded by council and brought back on as an option in the future. So,
and that operates for the term of this council, or until someone rescinds it?
Certainly for the term of this council. It would require a rescission for it to be brought back. Once the new council is in place, then
all bets are off.
All bets are off. Correct.
Thank you. And so then what is the mechanism on part 3 then? What is the mechanism for it to kick back in after we finish at Simons and Simons? What happens next?
Through Madam Mayor, so my understanding is I would have to find a mechanism to bring this item back before council. So it could either be a workshop or a report for consideration. But my understanding is I would have to find a mechanism to bring it back. So my intention would be to bring it back in some form. Yes, yes.
So you don't wish to speak now? You're just wanted to answer questions. Okay, so the next person on the list is Councillor Hughes.
I don't think under the rules you can ask a question and then talk anyway, can you? Don't know. Anyway, don't break the rules. I'm going to speak against this motion. Happy to note the results of the feasibility study. I actually don't think it's appropriate to take any of the options off the table. And we already have, which I think is actually an issue. So if this, and I think part 3 is just, it's delaying, although the Chief Executive has said that it would be then up to him to bring something back. I actually think this requires a resolution of council to bring this back to the chamber in what fit state we see that and what that should look like. So I won't support this motion for those reasons, but I think, Councillor Turnbull said we need to listen to the people, and as Councillor Davis has said, the people of Burnside want a wheel park, and I appreciate that it didn't get up in the last motion, but what I won't support is us going through this journey where every time a new site comes up, we take it off the table, and every time the next one comes off, we take it off the table, because I'm actually exhausted. So if this motion doesn't get up, I'm going to try and craft something a little bit fancy that we actually go and have a workshop, we review the report from, I think it was 2019, it may have been 2020, and now that we've gone through this journey a little bit longer, let's just give it one last crack. Because we've got all the information. The staff have written this report, I think, about 3 or 4 times in the space of what we've been here, and I think we've gone through this. Sometimes you need to go back with a fresh set of eyes. We've listened to the community for the last 3 years, and I think we need to have one last crack at doing this, because it's exhausting as an elected member to sit here and just wheel through every site, but I think it's also the staff are probably also at the point where they're like, you need to make a call or we need to stop doing this, because it's just exhausting to have it coming back to the table. So I think as an elected body, we actually owe it to the staff and our residents to make a final call, to make a decision, to move something forward and what that looks like. So I won't be supporting this motion, and we could be here all night with 800 different motions coming up, but I'll try and find something to put forward after this.
Councillor Lemon.
I had a question, Grant asked it.
I don't have anyone left on my list. Councillor Henschke.
Yes, thank you. I'll just speak to this. I'm really concerned that we keep on saying that the community have expressed a desire for a wheel park in the city of Burnside. Now, there's not a burning desire for a wheel park in the city of Burnside, because I keep looking at the statistics. Early in 2019, 56% of the people supported a wheel park, 24 were opposed, and the remainder were neutral. So that doesn't tell me, if there was 70 or 80% of the people in the city of Burnside said, yes, we want a wheel park, fine. But 56 are saying yes. Again, we did this similar survey in 2019, same numbers. So it's pretty clear that we don't have a burning desire for a wheel park in the city of Burnside. Why? I don't know. A lot of people don't want a wheel park. We've tried to find a wheel park location. We're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, even talking about sound acoustics and barriers and, goodbye to the koalas and there goes our carbon 2030, achievement, because we're going to be chucking more concrete in a park, I'm really, it's just very, I don't want the residents to be, disturbed by this stuff anymore, because they have said, a lot of them have said we don't want a wheel park. A lot of them don't know. So let's listen to the residents. We don't have to do this. We've got other things to do for them. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Look, I had the same concerns as Councillor Carbone over item 3. However, we've only got 2 more council meetings this year. We've got the second one in November. We're not going to get a report on alternative locations by then. And then we're on the Christmas Party Council. Well, we're not going to be wanting to discuss Skatepark for 4 hours at that meeting, God hope, or I'm going to walk out and make the meeting in quorum. So, and statistical surveys. Well, we've had statistical surveys that people don't want 40-kilometre-hour speed limits in the city of Burnside. And yet people are still doggedly pursuing that in the city master plan. So people pick and choose what surveys they pick and choose from that support what they already think anyway. So let's support this motion. Let's have a nice Christmas break and let's address this in the new year. And I agree with Councillor Carbone. Let's try and get this done in this council term.
I don't have anyone else on my list. Now going to enter the debate. Or more questions?
Oh, well, it strikes me, number 3, sounds like it says we can't do anything, hands are tied for 3 months, which is, if you're going to kick it down kicking it in next council mightn't have been a bad idea. But to kick it into February or March before you can do anything, then you've got to ask for a report, etc., and we're in the last year of council. If you're genuinely after doing something in this next 12 months, we shouldn't be voting this up. It's a loss of 3 months out of less than 12 for Councillor Carbone to make good on his promise to solve this in this council. And it gains you nothing. And I'm the person who doesn't want one. So, but in practical terms, number 3 doesn't do anybody any good. I feel Councillor Hughes possibly could have something, let's see, that might at least have something happen in the next couple of months so that in February we are at least a little bit further advanced to resolving this. So this really doesn't work for me and I'm voting against it.
Councillor Cornish.
I'd like to offer an amendment to number 3. Change the word consideration to decision.
I'll ask the mover and seconder whether or not they would consider that. You'd be happy as the mover? Seconder, Councillor? Because I don't believe that's an issue in relation to an amendment or anything, it's language.
I'm proposing it just purely from
Councillor
the fact...
Dawes?
Sorry.
So I'm still waiting on Councillor Dawes, but maybe he wants to hear what you've got to say first. Okay.
The reason for change from consideration to decision is it comes to this chamber for a decision, but this currently stops the administration from doing any further consideration, whereas they could in that 3-month period be doing that consideration and then it comes back and we can have a decision. So it just means that they're not sitting on their hands for the next 3 months waiting for us to start the process again in January.
Councillor Dawes, do you support Councillor Turnbull?
Can I ask a question of the administration? What Councillor Cornish just said, does that make sense to the CEO?
Makes sense to me.
No, through Madam Mayor, I think I personally like that change of wording, and as Councillor Cornish has articulated, it does allow the team to go away and do some work, and hopefully enable council to make a more speedy decision.
So, Councillor
Yes,
Dawes.
okay.
Good, thank you. I think that's an excellent variation there.
Can I ask, I'm not sure that process is appropriate. It actually does change the flow of the debate against... Councillor Hughes had an alternative motion she was working on. Having a negotiated... I'd just like to, if I could seek clarification whether that's appropriate, because if it is, I feel it's a precedent for that happening pretty regularly at other people's behest. And I don't think it is appropriate. I just think that it does the job. It actually fits with me. It doesn't do number 2 if I don't like number 2. But in number 3, it does say what I'm getting. But I just think of negotiating, someone comes up with something, will I, won't I? The CEO gets asked, does that make sense? I just don't think you want to have that happening on a regular basis, or even again. That's all. I don't know whether it's just...
as far as I am being told, there is no issue in relation to governance with the decision that's been made. So I would like to, we're going to change that word to decision, from consideration to decision. It's been agreed by the mover and the seconder. Did you wish to have anything further to say, Councillor Cornish? All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Cornish was the last on my list. Councillor Hugh.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I can't support this, even with the change of 3, which was a good change. Look, my belief is we have been very piecemeal about this the whole way through. We're not making really informed decisions, because I think by excluding sites without looking at their validity with respect to alternate sites, I just think that's a little bit irresponsible in terms of decision making. I didn't agree with ruling out the previous site. I don't agree with ruling out this site here. Truth be told, my personal opinion is I don't think Newland Park is the best spot in the city. That's my opinion. But I'm not an expert writing these reports. I think we need to compare sites in an informed manner, and if we were going to exclude Newland Park, I would want to do it after comparing it with other sites that we've done an equal amount of feasibility on. So I think we need to do feasibility and concept at all the sites we're considering. So my view is that we need to take a broader, big picture approach to this issue. And I think little exclusions like this, it's not a little exclusion, it's a really big deal. It's very valid. And I think all the deputies that came tonight, I really respect your point of view, and I'm not discounting your perspectives in any way. But I just think that this cannot be solved on a site-by-site basis. We do need to look at the city as a whole and compare apples with apples. And I don't think the course of action we have as a chamber followed over the last few years is doing that. I don't think we're treating this with enough respect, and I think we need to do a whole lot better. So I'm not going to support this, and I will be hoping that it doesn't get up so that we can keep taking action across the city.
Councillor Dawes, Councillor Dawes has indicated already that he wishes to speak as a seconder. Then I'll come to you, Councillor Lemon. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, and I'm pleased that Councillor Hubel said that Newland Park's not the best site and he preferred to have a comparison. And that's what we did try to do, you might remember, and some councillors didn't support that and we lost out, and so we went to Newland Park. As regards point 3, Councillor Turnbull and I have been trying to find the right words for that point 3, I think for the past week, and so you know, I'm thankful for Councillor Cornish's suggestion there. It does help, but I'm also supportive of what Councillor Hubel just said about trying to find a suitable site and comparing sites, etc. One of the problems we had is, and I'll take you back a couple of years ago, we had 30 very well organised residents who persuaded us not to proceed with a concept design or anything. And so they were off the table. And now we have 130, which is 100 more, or even more than 100, and we're still saying we need a concept design. You know, so yeah, it doesn't sit well with me. And we haven't mentioned the kindergarten. That's a direct opposite to what appears in the report. The natural environment hasn't got much of a mention so far, and I think that's an important part. The noise, I'd love to get Sonus in here, the people who did the independent report, and answer the questions that we have put to them, or where we've made an opinion on what's loud and not loud, and I think they might actually give us some very good information. The process, and I'll just make one last comment about the process that we went through, and I know that some councillors won't agree with me on this, but next time that we look at going through this process, unfortunately to our residents, Councillor Turnbull and I, it was a fait accompli, they see it, before it even started. It was a done deal. Why? Because even within a feasibility study, we would have within council some who say it is not feasible and some who says it is. We say it isn't feasible, but there are people around this table who says it is feasible. Once this council made contact with the tennis club, the baseball club, the kindergarten, of course the wider community will find out. So I don't know if that's the right process. I think we've learned a lesson, that if we do this in the future, at the same time as starting a feasibility study and a concept design, we involve the residents. Doesn't matter if it's in the same neighbourhood or the next door neighbourhood. Because what happened is that we had a lack of trust in this council, and that was shown by the deputations tonight. And when there's lack of trust, all sorts of things start to happen. So next time we do a feasibility study, my recommendation is we don't do it without first of all seeking the input of residents.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Now, Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I don't think I can support this either, partially because it takes Newland Park off the table, and I'll get to that in a minute, but also because I think it does take us through to the next council, and I think we really should do something. My sticking point is that every time we do a concept study, a design, it's going to cost us $15,000 to $30,000. And if we're going to do one of those every time we identify a site, there's not going to be a lot of money left over to do curbing and planting. So perhaps what we need to do is, as a council, like, I'm totally in agreement that twice our annual community survey has shown that the majority of people, more than 50% of Burnside residents, have said yes to a wheel park. Only 25% in both are opposed to it. That's a quarter of the people that are surveyed. So you could say a quarter of the people in Burnside are opposed to it. I think we should pursue this, but I think we've probably gone about it in the wrong way. And perhaps what we need to do as a body is decide what it's going to look like. Do we want the Olympic standard? Or do we want something that's recreational for families? And perhaps that's where we ought to start. So when we go out to community consultation, we can say, give or take, this is 500 square metres. This is for children between 4 and 12. These are the picnic and barbecue areas. No trees will die in building this. You know, this is the sort of stuff maybe that we need to go out with, because it's clear to me that the way we've been stumbling over our own feet in the last 18 months is not working. And it may not be that we do this. It may be that we go back to the drawing board and start making decisions about what this thing's going to look like in the first place before we go out cap in hand to our residents and say, you don't need to be afraid because it's actually rubber. There won't be any noise. Like, I don't know, but let's come back to us and start looking at what we actually want, rather than looking at experts and, oh, you can have this one, or you can have this one, or you can have the gold-plated one. Let us make the decision. And then it is easier to go and say it will fit best in this place. I think that's where we need to go.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I just want to make a few comments. First of all, the issue of a concept design does depend on a site. And I've visited probably about 30 different skate parks, wheel parks in the state over the last 3 years, or 5 years actually. And they are all designed to fit a certain space. And the newest one down at Christie Downs has an expansive space. And if you watch the video online about the opening on Facebook, there's one lady who's interviewed and she says, I've got 4 kids at 4 different ages. And what I love about this new park is it caters for my little one who's on a scooter, you know, my middle one that's on a bike, my older ones are on skateboards. And the issue for her is I can now go to one park where my whole family can enjoy the one place instead of having to go from one park to another park to another park to another park to satisfy the difference and the different needs. So that's the other comment I want to make. The other comment is that we do have to consider our increasing population within Burnside of young people. That is our largest area of expansion in number. And the last and final thing I want to say is that cost will also, of course, be a factor. You know, Campbelltown have just got a massive grant to rebuild theirs because it was 25, 30 years old, and the design of that old one is no longer relevant to the young people who are using those parks today. So obviously that's going to be a determinant on how we move forward. And so it might not be a quick decision, even though I know I'm as impatient as everybody else to try and get one. So I'll leave you now in the hands of Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the discussion. I quite agree with Councillor Hubel when he talks about the bigger view, getting a bigger view of all the sites. I agree with that. The siting of the pump track in Newland Park was just one of the places where it's been trialled. Although the siting was successful, we do not have any comparative data of the various sites. And if we did, there were so many variables. Everybody says how popular Newland Park was. Okay, it was the COVID time, it was autumn, it was beaut weather, it was on a good track, on a good surface, lots of variables. If you went to Miller Avenue, like I used to peer over from the bowling club, there were 2 kids and a dog on there because it was winter and grass and a different configuration. So a lot of that makes a lot of difference too. So I agree with the holistic approach that we should have. But however, I'll make the point too that we did exclude Kensington Garden Reserve. We had a motion that excluded it. So this motion would actually exclude Newland Park. So I can't see the difference with that one. We all realise that. I don't think that the residents would like to have a concrete slab on a lovely green grass area. I don't think the kids would like it too, because we all know about climate change and they all follow the popular people like Greta about climate change, and this is going to take over some of the precious land that we have, precious green grass for them. They use it for sport, etc. And here we are with a concrete slab. I don't think they're going to like it very much at all. They actually have good moral conscience, some of these children. The main reasons are that what I've said before, proximity to the houses, impact on the sporting clubs, new noise levels, etc. And the fact that 134 people on a petition is pretty powerful, and lots of people, intelligent people have said how it's going to impact their family life and their lives too. So I'm hoping you'll support this one. We can go out and I'm sure that the council can find us can produce statistics so we can make a decision before our term is up. So I'm sure they're quite capable of doing that and passing out the statistics to us so that we can make decisions based on all the sites that we've had and any others that come into play. But this is not fair to target one, and I would say please support this motion. Thank you.
Right, I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is lost. We're back to square one, but I am now going to suggest that we have a break. Oh, what? Councillor? Okay.
I'll have a re-vote because I don't think one council put up their hand. It's called division.
Division, yeah. Yeah, yell it out, Mike.
All right, so we need a division called. That's the simplest way to divide it. We don't need to go through the vote again. Those who are in favour, please stand. One, two, three, four, five. Those against? Sorry, I haven't called the names. Councillor Henschke, Councillor Davey, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Dawes and Councillor Jones. Those against, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Piggott, Davis, Lemon, Carbone and Hubel. So the motion was lost. I think it's necessary for a break. Even if it's only a 5-minute break, we need to have a break at this point in time. So unless anyone's opposed to it, we will have this break now and then come back. All right, 2/3 majority. Those who wish, you can't vote, unfortunately, if you're standing out, if you're not in your chair. I think there's an indication, sufficient indication that we need a break. I need a Now, I need to, no, hang on. I need to explain to you all that there are other motions here tonight, reports that we have to consider tonight. And guys, can you listen please? Because it's really important you understand. Yeah, no, they're staying, no. That's okay, they're staying regardless, I have explained. But you need to understand this, okay? You need to understand that we have 11.1, 11.3, 11.4, 11.5 and 11.7 that must be done tonight, must. Now we've done 11.7, so that's okay, but we still have to do those 4, yeah, 1, 3, sorry, we've got to do 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry.
Let's launch, I'll just launch straight
Yeah,
into it.
so we're going to start straight away, and then at the end, if there's time, you can put yours. But these have to be done first. No, we can't, because you are in the habit, this group, of wanting to finish at 10:30, right? That's an hour. And we have got to get these done first. So, well, we've already got 5 pulled. So the first one is 11.1, Councillor Piggott.
Yes, I'm moving in accordance with the recommendation. Look, I pulled it because I feel that the adoption of the annual report should be something that is debated rather than just waved through. This one perhaps can be waved through. It's a very good annual report. It's a very good financial result. It's a comprehensive picture of exactly the magnitude of stuff that this council does. I put it to you.
No, I wish to make some comments. Thank you. Thank you. I endorse all of Councillor Piggott's comments. It's a great financial result. However, I think it's a disappointing presentation of budget to us. I've happened to read the last one, the Norwood, Payneham and St Peters one, which came to their council with full of graphics and all of the pictures and everything. It was a complete version, except for the financial statements that we're waiting for. And I think it's quite disappointing that it comes to us in this format with no graphics. And I know the claim has been made that it's costs precluded at this stage, but they have to be developed at some stage. So I don't know why that wasn't presented to us in as complete a report as possible. The other issue I have is that there's no input from elected members into this annual report. I know we haven't done it in the past, but all other councils are now starting to do it, and I would like to see us have the opportunity to write a message in the report. I noticed that the Mayor's report message is very lengthy at 4 pages, which is, I think, too long. I think we should have an opportunity to have a say. And further, I think it would be very good to acknowledge the diversity of our community with perhaps a message each addressed in Mandarin or Urdu.
Excuse me, Councillor Davey. I think all of these criticisms and comments could be written to the CEO and to the Mayor.
I'm saying this in my council
No,
in the debate on the annual report. I'm just about finished,
all right,
but I want to have my say, and I hope it's being listened to. The other key...
You need to be careful about how rude you're potentially being.
The key that we keep being told and lectured about is that we are a very diverse community. There's nothing in the report addressed in Mandarin or Urdu, which, if they're the appropriate languages for our Chinese and Indian members of the community, I think it would be really nice to have a message from them. And I'll leave it at that, being a disciplined elected member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis.
It's a question of the administration. I mean, yeah, normally we do have a lot more detailed with the annual report. We do see it a lot sooner, I think. What was the reason why we didn't have a more polished version of, or a more final version of it before it came to council? Because, yeah.
Yeah, no, through Madam Mayor, I'll get Mr Cooper just to expand on that one.
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. Generally speaking, the graphic art and layout for the document is completed once council has approved the final text. This is generally the way that we have operated. Last year was an exception to that. where we did include the artwork as part of the final endorsement of the annual report. You may recall that there were a number of changes post that council meeting last year, which resulted in extra costs to the redesign of the document, and that could have been avoided. So being conscious of the high cost to produce the annual report and the financial challenges our community are facing post-COVID, we are conscious of any excess spending. We are aiming to minimise any cost overruns.
Can I ask a question then? Thank you very much for the administration. I appreciate that and totally understand the reasoning for it. Will we see the final version before it goes out in that case?
Through the Mayor, yes, that's absolutely fine. We can arrange that. We've got enough time to do that before we need to submit it at the end of the month.
Councillor Davey?
Could I just clarify? I have a question. The surplus that we've made, I've just mentioned acknowledged it's a good financial result. What was the surplus that we've made in the budget?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll get Mr Cooper just to put context around that number.
Is it 3.6 million? Is that the figure? On page 56, the one I'm reading is operating surplus. Net surplus 3.6 million.
Apologies for the delay. Yes, through the Mayor, the operating surplus was $3.2 million, which is, if you look at the report in 11.2, we do explain that variation. The main factors in that were the receipt of grant income that has to be recorded through income. There is the reporting under one of the accounting standards 1058 of the impact of our volunteer workers, which we have to recognise under income and expense. Under that expense area, under materials contract expenses, that adjustment to the cost of our volunteers actually masks some significant savings that we achieved in our materials expenditure budget. So those savings on material plus the extra grant revenue that was received was the reason for that significant variance for our operating result for the year.
Yes, Councillor.
So we're not on the bones of our arse in terms of cutbacks all the time and things like that.
Through Madam Mayor, I think it's fair to say it doesn't mean we have that's not a cash surplus, but I do. But I have to have regard for the savings targets that Council's given me this year, which are significant.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Jones?
May I please ask a question concerning Brownhill Keswick Creek subsidiary, particularly on page 235, where Brownhill Keswick Creek has buried, or Brownhill Keswick Creek subsidiary has buried a creek underground. Now, the City of Burnside watercourses policy says we will not bury creeks that are on the surface underground. So I'm somewhat aghast that we have let a council subsidiary bury a creek underground, albeit in the City of Unley. So did we object to this? Do we have a right of veto on what the subsidiary is doing if it's doing things that we would vehemently oppose if it was done in Burnside?
Through Madam Mayor, the practice of Brownhill Keswick Creek is when they develop the infrastructure in the certain council area, the council that's occurring in can have input into the ultimate design of the infrastructure in their council area. I do know, if it's Unley is the area you're referring to, and if it's the bit of creek that you're alluding to, Unley actually chose to put their own funds to get a different outcome that was initially mooted, because they decided that they want to transfer it into a bike path on top. So they put City of Unley funds over and above their subsidiary contribution to achieve that outcome.
Councillor Hughes, then Councillor...
I'd like to move that the motion be put.
Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Move the motion. I put the motion, sorry. Those in favour? Against? Carried.
Now we have to move the motion.
That was
Just for clarity, you can't call a division on a formal,
On an...
I thought it was a formal motion.
sorry, yes you can.
Sorry?
Zoe,
Yes, you can. Yeah, on a...
Thank you, Mayor. I move with the officer's recommendation the council receive and note the report on the financial results. Comment, noticing the graph on operating surplus, the budget and results, we've got a lot of variances this year. Lots of things we couldn't predict, I guess. So going forward, pending COVID, I guess we may expect more variances. We can't predict everything, but that's all I'd like to say.
Seconder, please. Councillor Piggott, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Are you happy if I put the motion, Councillor Henschke? Yes. Right. Those in favour? Against? Carried. The annual community survey, and it was Councillor Davey who withdrew it.
Thank you. I move in accordance with the recommendation with a minor change at 3, to become land revocation and sale to resolve, delete historic encroachments by householders of structures onto community land. Instead of onto. Thank you. I assume that these will be put in there. The interesting one is 40 km/h speed limit on our streets. We've already included that in part of our master plan. And as one of my colleagues tonight already mentioned around the table, that we have asked this question twice before. I'd be happy if it's omitted because, for the reason I've said, it's already in the master plan. But I think 2, 3, 4 and 5 are very relevant to our endeavours at the moment, so I would hope that emphasis is put on those. So hopefully you'll support this.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I have severe issues with all these questions because I don't think they actually add to anything. So we had the 40 kilometres that's there. We asked that question in 2017. We asked that question in 2019. In both cases, the answer was no. I don't see why we should be asking the question again in 2021. So I just think that's a waste of a question. Access to passive recreation opportunities. We actually have asked questions in the past about passive recreation, but in a real sense. The question will be, are you satisfied with access to passive recreation opportunities for mature age residents across the city, for example, walking, sitting in parks, reserves, access to cafes. What does that actually mean? I actually don't think that's going to give us anything that we can go and work with, that we can then change any of our policies, change any of our parks. Most people have no idea what that would mean. In terms of land revocation, I have difficulty with that question. Are you happy if council sells off land? Are you happy? How stupid a question is that? Are you happy? Yes, I'm jumping for joy, thank you very much. You know, really, to resolve, and that's actually been changed, to resolve encroachments by householders of structures on community land. What if it isn't structures? What if it's actually plantings? It's not covering that, so I don't think that one works very well. And then 4 and 5, we've already asked these questions. We've asked street trees and green areas provision and maintenance, the importance of, in 2017. We also asked habitat corridors, support for, in 2020, so last year. So I really think that the questions that have been put forward by elected members, and I didn't put any forward this year, but the questions that have been put forward have either been asked before, they've been answered before, or they make no sense. So I don't agree with any of them. I won't be supporting this motion. Councillor Hughes, you're next.
I was going to ask a question of the administration that if there are no elected member questions, would that be a potential saving in terms of completing the survey in dollars, or would it just be a time saving?
Okay. Just been told, yeah, the dollars no, but yes in terms of time.
Can I just clarify as well, were we only meant to be asking 3? Because otherwise it's an extra cost per question.
Yeah, no, through Madam Mayor, if you read the report, the last 2 items, we were already going to include an aspect of those in the survey. So in essence, there are only 3 that are being added in. I just thought, for the sake of elected members understanding that their thoughts are being included, that's why I presented it this way.
Can I just make it may actually, you might agree with me on this. Since this all happened, we've had our first disability and inclusion meeting, and it was really clear in that meeting from the community members attending that they want to have an opportunity to be able to say what they feel this city should be providing them with. And I think that would be, and I'm sorry to throw this clanger in, but I think that's a really important question that we need to be asking our community. How might we serve people with disabilities and access issues and inclusion issues in a more positive way? So I will leave it to you, Councillor Hughes, because you're on that committee.
Am I able to speak, or is there other people in the line? Are there other people on the line? Because I haven't spoken. Oh, okay. I guess that was going to be my follow-up question. I appreciate, and I will just talk to it. I was actually going to I didn't feel passionately about any of the things that were on the list, to be honest. I could take or leave the list. I think, you know, by the time we get to the end of the staff questions, you wonder how much value we're potentially going to get out of this. I think similar to what Councillor Lemon said, question 3 is a rather specific question which I think should be asked on a case-by-case basis. I think it's very difficult to ask that in a general sense. So I guess I was potentially, you know, leaning down the thing of, well, do we need to ask elected member questions, have the staff covered off on that? And part of that was we did have a discussion at the Disability and Inclusion Community Group around, you know, perhaps this could be an outcome, and I wasn't sure whether that was going to be addressed through a staff question or whether we would need to bring it through this. So I would be keen to see us ask that, and I guess perhaps finishing with a question of staff. I'm not sure whether that's been covered elsewhere. I always find this difficult when we get asked what our questions are going to be without knowing the rest of the questions that are going to be in the survey. I sometimes struggle with what we should agree on.
Councillor, I'll just go on with Councillor Dawes and then come back to you while they're getting an answer. Sorry, it was you, Councillor Henschke, next, and then it was Councillor Dawes. It is you, Councillor Henshey.
Oh, thank you. Well, this question we're asking about access to passive recreation opportunities, I think it's a really great question because passive recreation doesn't require infrastructure. We were in this sort of mindset of build things. But hang on, you know, people might want to tell us, oh, they want a picnic, bird watch, fly kites, bicycle, walk. Passive recreation, it's the next big thing. You don't need to build and create carbon emissions, okay? Thank you.
The Dawes was next.
Yes, I did put the 40 kilometres an hour in, and I think Councillor David probably did the rest. And the reason why I did ask Bernie, you know, just a little bit more background information, and it was in 2015 that we first asked, and it was 32% that supported 40 kilometres an hour. And I think also they asked in what particular suburb you had responded, because I think that was also important. And I think that is what we were trying to do this time, as I discussed with Bernie. So with the City Master Plan coming out next year, it will be like 3 years nearly since we last surveyed in 2019. And in 2019 compared to 2015, it was still about 31, 32%. It hadn't changed. So I just put it in there for the benefit of the council to say, like, if it's not going to change again and it's still 32%, then this will not be part of the City Master Plan unless it's for a particular suburb. And through this asking of the question, we may be able to categorise the answers within suburbs. So I thought I'd pass it on.
An answer for Councillor Hughes first, from the CEO, in relation to diversity and inclusion.
Through Madam Mayor, there's currently no specific questions around disability access and inclusion. So if you're of a mind to include something in that vein, we don't need to wordsmith the question. We just need to articulate that we want a question around focusing on that aspect. And I think if it goes above and beyond, I think we've said it's another $1,000 and a couple of minutes in this. How much does it add to the survey, the length time?
Right, the next person is Councillor Davey.
I have a question to ask if everybody is aware that we have just received an info doc on the 5th of November, which is a review of the Community Access, Inclusion and Participation Policy. So the newly formed reference group has generated, and with our Access, Inclusion and Participation Plan, we're now developing a policy on top of that, and we're being able to give input to that. So as I hope are the reference group. So I think it's perhaps a preemptive question and presumptuous to be asking for that to be included at this stage.
Councillor Jones, you are next.
I'd first like to say how much I enjoyed Councillor Lemon's speech. The best speech of the evening by far. I have to say I can't support the 40 kilometre per hour question. It will just appear to our residents like a European Union never-endum, where we keep asking the same question until we get the answer we want. People will just say, for God's sake, you guys, we keep saying no. Why do you keep wasting money asking the same question? So I think we should ditch it. Question 2, I have to say, are you happy of the level of access to passive recreation opportunities in the city of Burnside? Are you joking? I mean, really? Who is going to say no to that question? All people are going to say is, yeah, it's great, but they could be greater. And what's that going to lead? What kind of decisions is that going to lead us to? I think it's not adding anything. So I would tend to stick with 3, 4 and 5. I do think Councillor Lemon has a point. Question 4, are you satisfied with the preservation of the urban tree canopy? I think people will say, you think you could do a bit better, Council? But we knew that anyway, because we're constantly talking about it. And I'm not sure that the great Burnside public have any better ideas of how to preserve and maintain the urban tree canopy than we do and our expert staff do. So it is, I mean, I will support it, but You know, given that Councillor Dawes and Councillor Davey were the only two people who suggested questions, I guess I can't grumble too much since I didn't actually submit any myself. So I would support 3, 4, 5.
Councillor Hughes, did you wish to speak again? I have you on the list.
I did. I just had another question, and it relates to the 40k an hour. We're doing this master plan. Will that go out to consultation with some recommendations, and would we essentially be asking that question in a different forum?
Yes.
Now, Councillor Davis.
Would it be too different if I move the motion to remove 1 to 5 and kept and looked at the disability access question? Yeah, and just keep the disability access one.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just get some clarification? Did you say remove 1, 2, 5?
1, 2, 3, 4 and 5.
Yeah, so all of them?
Yeah.
All 5 and then 1 for 3 and then 4 and 5.
Whew. Interesting, we've never asked a question about disability.
Sorry.
You said it,
Thank you for
so
clarifying
I think
that
that's a
for
good idea,
me.
Your Worship.
And looking to replace it with one singular question.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me just get some advice.
Really?
What's wrong with that? Yeah, but the resolution is, you know, are we that committed to all of these?
Well, maybe you vote it down. If you want to amend it.
Oh, come on.
They're actually giving you a chance here.
Yeah, but...
The meeting didn't happen until after submission. Yeah, the diversity and inclusion meeting didn't happen until after, and the community people on that, 4 of them, said they clearly wanted to have the opportunity to actually speak and be heard about what they wanted through any medium that they could.
That's so bad.
I don't even
Through Madam Mayor, by virtue of the fact that we're removing all 5, I think we can argue that's a substantial change.
It's not that bad. All right, what if I got rid of...
I can understand I've stated the bleeding
4 of them.
That's
and
still substantial.
Kept passive recreation, how about that? And then added an extra one. Where's the line? Let's keep testing it until we find out what the line is. All right, I'll speak to it then, I guess.
Some people took the time to actually write questions.
Yeah. Look, I appreciate that people took the time to write some questions, but I don't think the 40 kilometre... What's going on out there? So I don't think that the... Look, I actually don't think that we're going to get anything from this, and I actually think we're going to get a whole bunch of data which is bloody confusing. And I mean, if you have a look at the question 24.4, how the question's been posed in 24.5, I think the data you're going to get for that is going to be completely irrelevant. I mean, are you going to give a resident a specific... Like, these discussions are very difficult about the encroachments. You know, if you pose that question to be, if there is completely superfluous land which is landlocked that no other resident could possibly access, and there's alternative means of transport and there's a footpath nearby, would you support selling that land and expanding more useful community space? I think you get a very different response to, are you happy selling off council land? And so, in my view, that it's not well framed, and I think we could answer that particular question a lot better. Because these are very complicated issues, and what we should be seeking for is much broader strategic views around the City of Burnside Council, I think I'm very worried about how that's going to be used in future. Oh, can I pause my time? Or are you going to say something? No. So I think we should vote this down, and I think we should just go with the manner in which we can increase disability inclusion and then be done with it. I don't think that we're actually going to get anything useful from this, and I think we're actually going to be going backwards. Might be a situation where you go, well, this is fine to just ask the question, who gives a crap? Well, actually, you're going to get data, and you're going to need to act on that. All right. So, out of these questions, if 70%, which has determined a significant crying out level, come back and say X, what are you then going to do about that? And unless you're prepared to act and you actually have a mindset to do that, I don't think we should ask for this information. I think we should keep it short and sweet otherwise. So I won't be supporting the motion, and I'll be proposing to move an alternative which gets rid of the 5.
Councillor Henschke, you had a question? Or
Yes, question and comment. When's the latest that we can set this up?
Tonight.
Question through the administration, so it has to be decided tonight. Yeah. All right. Well, I comment. Look, there was a process to get us here to tonight, and here we're unravelling the whole process. You know, we had the chance to contribute. There was contribution. The administration's thought it through. They're aligning this with the city master plan. Let's move on and vote for this. Thank you.
Councillor Davis?
Question. Could the question regarding community encroachments be more detailed and less leading?
So, through Madam Mayor, the clarification I was going to provide earlier is that the questions that are in the agenda here were the proposed questions put forward by the CMs. When we put this together, we'll be working with our external expert to articulate these in statistically relevant ways or manner. So they will be worded differently than you see them here to achieve a statistically relevant result.
Don't have anyone else on my list. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? We'll ask a question. All right, then I shall go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. We all had the opportunity to provide input into these questions to be included. Whether we want to review the whole way we do our community survey or revamp that whole process, that's another discussion. But we're at the stage now where a couple of us have put forward some questions. I think they're quite legitimate to ask our community because they're all very relevant issues. And the one about passive recreation is actually very relevant because, as one of my colleagues has already said, we are building up increasingly on every square centimetre of our reserves and open space, and people are crying out. That's the message I'm getting, crying out for passive recreational opportunities. So, in amongst all the tennis courts and the wonderful sporting facilities and the kids' playgrounds and all sorts of things, wetlands, you name it, we still need passive recreation. And perhaps we need to test that, so that's hence the reason for my question. The other big one, and we're constantly getting these requests, is about encroachments onto our parks and reserves. And these are some long-standing, some are short-standing. They're opportunistic encroachments by some residents onto public land. And so there seems to be some confusion or resistance amongst the staff about pursuing this. So I'm keen for us to actually get a benchmark or some idea about how we actually measure what our community thinks about encroachments. And in terms of the urban tree canopy, there is statistical information. There are reports coming out right, left and centre that we are losing our green space, our tree canopy, by percentages every year as we increase our grey canopy, and our community want us to do something about it. So, sorry if I'm banging on about the old concepts with our environment and our trees, but I think that's how our community, these are very valid questions for our community in our annual community survey. So I hope you'll support this. Thank you.
Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. I'm just very disappointed we can't include something about disability and inclusion. So what was a great opportunity. You could have put your suggestions in. It didn't, Jane. We didn't have the meeting until after the suggestions closed. So many other ways of doing it. Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, did I hear Councillor Davies say words to the effect of that council staff are reluctant to enforce encroachments and so forth? Did I hear that correctly? And
yes, you did, and I think the CEO is going to respond.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to get your thoughts on that, because from my perspective, it's totally opposite, because I'm happy to enforce.
Sorry,
Encouragement.
I didn't intend for that. Didn't mean that. I mean, there's confusion about what should come to council and what not, and how we pursue encroachments on public land
Yeah,
because of
that's
the
fine.
complexity
I just
of
want
those.
to be clear, we're on the same page here.
Yes.
Now, oh, come on. There's a few people who've used words that are inappropriate, but it doesn't matter. Let's move on. It's Councillor Davey, you have 11.5. Now,
Thank you. I'll move in accordance with the recommendations, and thank you to all the staff for all the work that's been done, because it's quite comprehensive. The one query I had is about how we will get the information about the changes onto our website, because there are some issues that our community need to know about these changes, particularly procedures at meetings and about briefing sessions and those sort of things. Are we proposing, to put that onto the website pretty quickly?
Through me, and thank you for that question, highly relevant, Councillor Davey. Once these changes are adopted, the team will put together a common strategy to ensure we articulate them well to our community. So please rest assured that will occur, and the community will be informed as best we can of the changes.
seconder? Councillor, who had their hand up first? Sorry, I was looking the other side. Oh, I need a seconder first. Councillor Hughes, seconded, thank you. Councillor Jones, your question. Sorry, Councillor Dawes.
This is a question about the informal gatherings. I read a thing from Kelledy Jones that they put their emails out, and if, say, as from time to time happen, Mr Kant might meet Councillor Hubel and I on a ward matter, that would constitute an informal gathering because council staff have invited more than one councillor to a meeting. Is that thing from Kelledy Jones correct? And if so, is that a problem for us?
Through Madam Mayor, I might refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, yes, that's correct. That's the advice that we've been receiving, and that would have to be recorded.
That's also why it's published after the meeting.
Next to question or speak is Councillor Dawes, and then I've got two over this side.
Yes, I did pick up one thing from that very long document, is that if we pass this tonight, as from tomorrow, then questions on notice and motions on notice must be in by Monday, 5 p.m, not Wednesday. So I hope everybody picked that up, because that's a very important point. Thank you.
Next is Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Just a quick one. Are we going to have a workshop or any sort of information gathering about this as the changes take effect and become apparent?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I'll just seek clarification with Mr Cooper.
Thank you for the question. As the ongoing LG reforms are rolled out, we're working very closely with the LG Equip programme, and there may indeed be valid reasons why we need to hold a workshop to inform council members of those changes. With the ones that have happened so far, they're fairly straightforward and have been presented in terms of updated policies, etc. So we don't feel that there's a particular need for a workshop on the ones that are coming forward. As Councillor Dawes referred to, there are some impacts in terms of changes on deadline for council meetings, and we will endeavour to remind all elected members at the end of this week of that change so that everyone's well prepared for the deadline on Monday.
Councillor Hench.
I was going to ask the same, that when we started our term, we were given a short training session from Norman Waterhouse, I believe, so we knew the rules. So just, I presume we'd be trained with a short session of some sort if required. Thank you.
Have you got something you want to say? Okay.
So this is a follow-up from my first question. How are you going to manage all these, what's going to surely be a vast number of informal gatherings as compared to the previous legislation?
Through the chair. So with informal gatherings now, we no longer, with the rescission of the council's policy, reporting on informal gatherings is done in a retrospective way, so that if a meeting does happen between one of the directors or the CEO and a group of elected members, after that meeting has occurred, it can be logged onto the register, which is published on the website.
That the meeting has occurred.
That the meeting has occurred, what was discussed and where it was held.
That can be quite extensive.
It can be very extensive.
I'm only going to meet one-on-one.
Right. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'm conscious of the time. Right. Are those in favour of the motion? Those against? Carried. According to me, we've covered all of those for tonight. There is nothing, motions on notice, I don't have any urgent business. Is there anyone who does have any urgent business? I'm just making sure I've got nothing else here. Now, there is sufficient, maybe sufficient time. Councillor Hughes has suggested a motion which is about to be put up in relation to the follow-up on the wheel park.
I will be brief because I'm conscious of time. So thank you to the
In 5 minutes I have to do it.
Thank you to the CEO for his work, and also Mr. Kent for quickly getting back to me during session. It may not be my best piece of work, but my motion would be that Council note the results of the Newland Park Feasibility Study, and number 2, hold a Council member workshop as soon as practicable to review the 2019 desktop study of suitable sites for a wheel park. And as I said previously, I think we just need to regather as an elected group, rather than, you know, we've taken multiple steps to get to this point. I think we've all learnt a lot as part of that process for the last 2 years. I think we should make the effort to go back, sit down, review where we're at to, so that then we can come forward with another resolution or another motion to either, you know, put a hold, not move it any further forward, or to actually be proactive around what we're going to do. And I think we should sit down with staff, have the opportunity to all ask questions and move forward. So I will leave it at that. I'll try and be brief.
Councillor Hubel has already agreed to second it. Is there anyone who wish to make a comment? Did you want to withhold? Okay. So Councillor Henschke, then Councillor Dawes, then Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Will that include the results of the pump track stuff? No, 2019 desktop study, so that won't include the pump track results?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm sure we'll have that data available for that workshop.
Councillor Dawes?
No, I'd like to know, I can't remember the 2019 desktop study. Was that the 24 that we talked about originally? The huge one? Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Councillor Davey?
That was my question too. Exactly what was that table, and what was that desktop
The table was
study?
all of the possible sites, and a kind of a summary of the pros and cons. So it's about revisiting that again.
Based on the criteria that we've now decided and determined?
We haven't decided on any criteria. We just want to I think your motion says you just want to revisit that particular document and look at it again in a workshop situation.
And is that with a certain set of criteria, or?
Yeah, I just think it's just giving an opportunity to have another look at this report. Workshop itself will flesh out.
Criteria are already established in the report, so it's not creating new criteria, it's looking at what we've already got there in existence in that document. Councillor Henschke.
Can I ask through the chair what the outcome, what the purpose of this is? Why do we want to review? Does the administration understand why we want to review, what we will achieve?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So my understanding is, because as it stands from the present moment, I have no direction on where to go with the skate park. So this, my understanding that Councillor Hughes is trying to achieve here is that this actually will ultimately provide at the council and the administration with a future direction to go forward with.
And we've had some really successful working group type participatory workshops recently that have been very productive. So I think that's certainly the way that I'm sure the staff would be looking at it. Councillor Jones.
I am entirely unconvinced that Glenside is not a viable site. Can that be considered at the workshop?
I think by the very nature of the workshop, we can add probably whatever we want in there, but certainly happy to bring that to the table for discussion.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? I'm looking at the time. Councillor Davey?
Yes, I endorse Councillor Jones' comments that that site needs to be included with all and measured against any criteria that we have already.
Councillor Henschke?
Can the administration also bring along all of their all the options for different types of skate parks that they could imagine?
It's not possible, Councillor Henschke. That's already been explained tonight. Councillor Piggott.
Could I move the motion be put?
Thank you, Councillor Cornish. Those in favour of the motion being put? Those against? Carried. Now I'll put the motion. All right, those who are supporting that the motion be put, Councillor Cornish, Hughes, Piggott, Lemon, Carbone and Dawes. Against, Councillors Henschke, Davey, Davis, Lemon. No. Sorry, not Lemon, Turnbull, apologies. I'm looking at you and I'm saying her name, so I apologise. Turnbull and Jones. And Hubel. Yeah, I think you've got them all there. Right, you may sit. Sorry, okay, what about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6. Well, I'm going to give the casting vote to the yes, that the motion be put. Excellent. Right. Just one of those rare occasions when people agree with me. Okay, now, right, now I will put the motion. Those in favour? Those against?
Division.
Carried. All right, those who voted for, please stand again. Councillors, here we go again, Helen. Councillor, you're giving lots of practice tonight. Councillor Cornish, Hughes, Piggott, Henschke's added, yep. I got to Piggott? No, so I'm starting again. Okay, Henschke, Cornish, Hughes, Piggott, Davis, Lemon, Carbone, Dawes and Jones and Hubel. Those against, Davey and Turnbull. Look at that, right. Thank you. Right, the motion was carried, of course.